and welcome to the Comicspiracy Podcast. This is Ryan Higgins, and if you're hearing an intro like this, you know that means something went wrong. Well, what went wrong this time? Well, unfortunately, Audacity, for some reason, decided to not record off our microphones, our nice fancy microphones we have. It decided to record off the front of our laptop this week, and you know that doesn't sound too good. So I tried to clean up the audio, amplify some stuff. Hopefully it's listenable. I've edited a bunch of stuff out of the beginning and end of the podcast, trying to re-record a little bit of it here. You don't need to hear our plugs. We plug the same shit every week. If you want to hear it, go listen to any other podcast. What you do need to hear, though, is you're wondering why this is a 3-hour-long podcast. Well, the first 2 hours or so is our discussion of the first 2 weeks of all the Marvel Legacy titles. A lot of stuff going on. Myself, Brock, Charlie, and Jim Jokisch. We're here to talk about all the comics from Marvel Legacy. So give that a listen. That's the entire podcast. That's everything that was recorded. The only other thing that we cut out was a little intro where we talk about why this episode is 3 hours long, and that's because the back hour of the podcast is actually an interview with Reed Tucker. He's the author of Slugfest, inside the epic 50-year battle between Marvel and DC. This is a book available right now at finer comic book stores all across the country, on Amazon, everywhere you'd buy books. We have copies coming into the store very soon. Reed's a listener of the podcast, and he's been promoting this book around. It's really great read. I got to read a big chunk of it before we did the interview with him, talking about Marvel and DC, their rivalry through the years, on the creative end, on the fan end. Goes basically right up to Rebirth. Really interesting title. Did a lot of research, talked to a lot of creators about this stuff. You should definitely give this book a read. Listen to the interview with the back half of this podcast. Again, the audio quality is much better than the audio quality for the first half of this podcast. So without further ado, suffer through 2 hours of not our greatest quality, but some okay books. So we're going to be back in 2 weeks with the remainder of the Legacy Month 1 talk. We'll have a regular episode next week. I think Bryce wants to talk a little bit about the books he read as well. So enjoy.
What are we talking about this week, Ryan?
So this is one of our, should be 4 episodes over the course of the next few months, talking all about Marvel Legacy. Now, we skipped Marvel's last relaunch. We don't cover every new launch of titles when they come out, but I figured Marvel Legacy was...
Marvel?
We did...
Like every other month?
Well, we did most of them, and I was just like, no, I'm not doing this again. So we skipped...
And we're doing it again.
We skipped all new, all different Marvel Now 2.0, whatever the hell the last one was called. But Legacy, to me, felt like it was, hopefully, something worth covering. It definitely wasn't worth covering the last time because it led to some of the worst output in Marvel's entire history. But I feel like I went into this... And we're going to talk about our kind of thoughts on these first 2 weeks of titles first, and then we're going to get into the specifics on each issue. I was kind of I was hopeful a few months ago, and as we got closer to this, all hope evaporated.
Well, I think it was the Marvel reached out to retailers and was talking to retailers, and things seemed a little brighter. And
they said the right stuff. They said the stuff everyone wanted to hear.
Then there was this whole thing called Generations, which was told it wasn't this way, but it actually was this way. And
we did better on Generations than every other book that it was a part of, so I'm not going to complain about Generations.
But, I mean, you weren't ordering it in droves, though.
No. I mean, compared to most Marvel books we were, but...
When I heard about Generations, I was really, really hyped up for it. When I heard about Legacy, I thought, yes, finally, they're hearing us, they're hearing the fan base, they're hearing the guys who are out there actually purchasing the books, and things are going to turn around. I don't feel that. I was severely let down.
Well, the Legacy one-shot, obviously, we talked about a little while ago. And when we talk about these issues, I'm going to look at it from two different perspectives, and we're going to give our own kind of opinion on it. Again, not everyone's going to talk about every issue because this podcast will already be 10 hours long. But besides...
Hey, Bryce isn't here.
Right. But besides kind of giving a rough kind of quick overview of the issue and a quick thought among the group, I also want to kind of rate these books as, do you feel like it accomplished what we sort of...
Did it fulfill the legacy?
Right.
The legacy thing.
Right. Now, again, as Legacy has come closer and is now out, what we thought was going to happen. It isn't, right? I mean, we thought this was going to be like Rebirth, or just immediately every book changes, right? And that's clearly not the case. So this, unfortunately, for most people, is the jumping on point on these titles, which very few people did. But, you know, we'll go through these and see what we all kind of thought. Charlie, I mean, you didn't jump in. You know, I think everyone knows how we feel. Well, you know, you're pretty easygoing. You know, that's one of your better traits. You still read a good chunk of Marvel. You know, going into this, what was your...
So, as already kind of covered, I was hoping for a return to form amongst a lot of these different books and a lot of these different characters. And I could talk at length on what I thought about some of these and everything about what... Some of them I thought did a much better job of accomplishing a sense of... Okay, I'm going to go straight for an example because I feel like I can do better with an example here.
Sure.
Jessica Jones returned to a story arc that I specifically cared about from Jessica Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, immediately the Return of the Purple Man sets up everything that feels important about this character and basically how this character made it to a Netflix series and everything else is encapsulated in the idea of the Return of the Purple Man.
So like going back to Alias.
Yeah. So it kind of did acknowledge where the book came from and return to one of the key aspects of that book for me. Versus like Defenders, which is another Bendis book, that felt like, nope, this was just the final issue of the previous story arc. It wasn't even let's give people a fresh story to jump onto that really encapsulates it. And that's where I think, like everything, some of these felt more like a return to form or more like a return to what solidified that book in the first place. And a lot of them didn't.
Okay. You're going to hear this a lot. You're going to hear like this quite a bit as I'm moving around these lenticular covers, so ignore the weird noises coming out of the microphone.
I thought that was just good.
We're going to start with Avengers. I've been doing the first week, second week, alphabetical order as close as I can get it. Again, we're going to briefly talk about the creative team, maybe pitch the book a little bit here, and then, you know, like I said, everyone will kind of give their 2 seconds. Again, I don't want to spend 20 minutes on any of these titles, but I do kind of at the end of each issue, kind of give you an idea. Hey, you know, where do I feel this fits on the Rebirth scale or Legacy scale, as well as, you know, is it worth picking up? So, Avengers, what are we at now? 672 by Mark Waid and Jesus Saiz. This is again, Avengers has been just Avengers now. No, all new, all different, whatever. We've heard the U.S. Avengers and Uncanny Avengers are getting kind of collapsed down into this as of January. I don't know if that's permanent. I pray it's permanent. But they're also making the book weekly as of January, which is a bit much. But anyway, Avengers. Let's start off with just one of the worst of these titles. And God, I love Mark Waid, but I don't want to say there's no such thing as bad characters, but I don't know. The Avengers are just... Anyone jump in whenever you want.
It didn't feel like the Avengers.
It's just still not the Avengers, and it's no character that anybody cares about.
The thing is like, for me, reading it, like, the Jane Foster 4 does not feel like the Jane Foster 4 at all.
And she hasn't in Demand Avengers title at all since this new series
and
started.
What I got from this is, like, she just wants to go and shack up with Sam Wilson, like, the whole time.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Not to mention that this is a story that jumps in as a team-up crossover with Champions. So
you immediately go into the crossover of the Champions. Some random asteroids fall into Earth, and the Avengers and the Champions get together to stop it.
In the atmosphere.
Like, all right.
This is not a jumping on point.
It's just
a hyped up book.
And it's not even not a jumping on point. It's like the most nothing story. Like this used to be the introductory page of a comic book.
That's true.
Right? Where they're like, the Avengers just stopped this asteroid. Cool, now on to the adventure, right? And you know, I mean, I hate to start off on such a negative point because I actually liked a lot of these titles. But, Mark Waid, man, not your title. And, you know, I'm never going to say this bad, you know, that you can't do a character right, but, man, maybe the stupidest thing I saw in this is Hulk and Hercules riding Cyclops' beam. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, there's a whole idea that Cyclops' beam is not like a energy. It's not hot. It's not heat. It's a force push.
It's a force.
But that's not how that works. Like, he can't push
It's not
people
a solid.
up. No.
It's not solid based.
Well, and then they were trying to do a fastball special in there too, weren't they?
That's kind of like their fastball special. And it's so stupid. Like, I don't.
Two of these titles that we're going to talk about had fastball specials.
And well, there's your legacy stuff, right? And immediately starting a crossover. Again, there's a lot of that where there's so many effing crossovers right off the bat that Marvel took what DC did and did right and just blew it up to just.
No, you can stop it there. Blew it up.
Well,
Just-
it's like you don't start out something that you're like, oh, this is the point where you need to be at and stuff like that. It's like, give us the Avengers book, and then once you tell a story or two, then cross over with something and let it grow.
Yeah.
This is just oh, guess what? Champions is going on, Avengers has been going on, and hey, we're gonna team them up, and here's the book.
Yep.
We're going to put a special cover on issue number 53. And no, sorry.
23?
Was 53? Yeah, 53.
No, it's not 53.
672.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I had a hard time reading the lenticular cover.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we don't need to get into that.
But it's just, all it is just a special cover for that particular issue. There's nothing special about it.
Yep.
So this, for me, definitely fails from an idea of legacy, and this kind of comes back to a customer I was helping over the weekend during the sale. We had a customer who came in who was interested in sort of Iron Man and interactions between Iron Man and Captain America, and I helped her see some classic Iron Man books, some this book, some that book, and we got to the Avengers. I'm like, yeah, Avengers traditionally are this whole idea of Cap, Thor, and Iron Man as sort of the key base, and then those around them can change. But you don't have a traditional Captain America in the book right now. You don't have a traditional Iron Man. You don't have a traditional Thor.
Right.
It's missing that sort of core legacy aspect to it, so it doesn't feel like you're returning to a more classic version or something that really embraces the legacy of Avengers.
Right. So I don't. It doesn't sound like any of us liked it, and definitely fails the legacy test.
I think the last line in the book is, "Hey, look, it got worse."
Yeah, and it did. The book got worse. I mean, I haven't read every single issue of the original run. I own them all. There are chunks where I haven't read. There's a lot of the Silver Age stuff that I missed. I never sat down and read, and some in like the 100 some odds. I literally read every single issue of Avengers, probably from 200, at least from like maybe 175, 150 maybe. I'd say 150. 150 to the start of the other year, right? Mm-hmm. And I've read a good chunk of that original stuff too. I can't read this book. It's so disappointing that Mark Waid has failed
if you go back
completely
to
as a writer on these titles.
Some of the original stories are corny.
Oh, of course.
Space Phantom was issue number 2.
What about, remember Gilgamesh joined like for issue 300? Like, it was a terrible comic.
But you could still read them, and you can still, get in with these characters.
Yeah.
These, again, we have no ties to these characters. There doesn't feel like a team.
Yep.
It just feels like a mishmash, a mash-up of characters in a book in the calling of the Avengers.
Yep.
Well, so this is where I don't necessarily consider Mark Waid a failure on this, because I have a hard time picturing Mark Waid, especially Mark Waid of all people, going to Marvel pitching this is the team I want to write Avengers for.
Yeah.
I picture
Marvel
this
coming to Waid and saying, you're going to write this
team as the Avengers book.
Yeah.
And I think, especially with an event like Legacy, you need to have a more strong tie to the legacy of Avengers.
I would rather read Great Lakes Avengers over this one.
So let's move on to Iceman number 6. This is by, I lost my page. This is by Sina Grace and Robert Gills, the artist. I just want to read the first paragraph in the Iceman letter column in the back.
Oh, letter call?
This is Iceman scribe Sina Grace here. I'm happy to share this issue of Iceman with you. We settled on the Champions as our legacy tie-in before I got the hint about Black Widow's death. There's more to it than that, but the legacy tie-in.
That's the cover on the front.
No, but legacy. Like, I don't think this person knows what they're writing. Like, there's no such thing as a legacy tie-in. That's not
No, that's what
tie-in.
No, it's the lenticular cover. It's they picked the Champions cover as their tie-in for Iceman, which makes no freaking sense. It's the homage. He uses tie-in in the wrong thing. I think he's trying to say the Champions cover is the homage cover.
Later, in one of the answers to a question where they're talking about Iceman and Iceman meeting each other, he says, expect to see Bobby with his favorite person again himself. Yes, I get to do another Melville with that time to displace Bobby for a whole issue. That'll come after this Legacy tie-in. No, I don't think this person knows what they're writing.
I don't even know.
I will leave this issue to other people to discuss. So we're gonna move on to Iron Fist.
Didn't read.
I did. It was among the worst comics I've read this year. I mean, it's probably
Iron Fist was.
No, Iceman.
Yeah. Let's go past Iceman because it was not good.
I at least could read it.
This is the nice way Charlie says
I was interested in it for the champions, for the original champions.
Right.
I have ties to those characters: Hercules, Black Widow, Angel, Ghost Rider.
And the idea of them getting together to discuss Black Widow's death was cool, except these characters, short of Hercules, are completely unrecognizable within this issue.
Yes.
I have no idea who anyone's supposed to be at any time. No one is written like the characters they are.
You know what it felt like? It felt like the scene in Age of Ultron, Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
When they're all sitting around talking about trying to lift Thor's hammer and stuff.
That was a great.
That's a great scene.
No, that was a great scene, but it does not translate onto here. It doesn't. It's not. It's not good. It's not good at all.
Oof, it was bad. I think obviously fails the retest, fails the legacy test. Again, had the potential. I was excited because I thought, Iceman's going to become a Champions comic. No, it's just literally this one issue, and that's it. And they're not even the Champions in it. So,
well, it transfers over from whatever story arc was going on before.
Right, and it just could, they talk about, no, it doesn't. It talks about Black Widow, and then it's just going to go off and do something afterwards. So, the next issue is totally, right, that's what I meant. It's not what the book was supposed to be. It's a complete, just one-off, nothing story that goes nowhere. Next is Iron Fist number 73.
Loved it.
By Ed Brisson and Mike Perkins. I was actually really excited about Iron Fist because they're bringing back Sabretooth into this issue. I feel like this fails the legacy test because I had absolutely no idea what was going on at any point during this issue. I feel like it completely fails to introduce... it introduces Iron Fist and Sabretooth, and the rest of the plot in this book, I don't have the slightest clue who they are, what they're doing, why they're there. I mean, clearly this just continues from the issue prior.
Yes.
But I have no, I was completely lost during this issue. So half of it I liked. Again, the Iron Fist and Sabretooth stuff, I'm like, okay, I don't know why he would go to Sabretooth, but okay, it's a way to try to team them up. But again, if you're a new reader jumping on this book...
No, this is... This is definitely something that you're going to be like, well, what happened prior to this? What did... And the thing is I've read the Iron Fist stuff, most of it prior to this, and I was enjoying the Iron Fist stuff. Yeah. But, it carries over from what happened before.
Yeah, there's no clean break here. There's no intro.
There's no clean kind of start to it, and you're just kind of like... Okay, it's continuing a story. It's not bringing anything new. This isn't a good jumping on point for anybody. If anything, I tell people, go pick up Iron Fist number 1.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a fine issue. I thought it just fails the legacy test.
I agree with you on those points. It does fail the legacy test, but I did enjoy... I have been reading a little bit of Iron Fist, and I did enjoy the Sabretooth and Iron Fist bar scene, so I was enjoying it.
Yeah.
So I see this a little bit differently, as I've been way behind on Iron Fist. I haven't read it since the first few issues when it released.
Yeah, I didn't read any of the release.
I completely and totally fell behind on it. And the one thing this issue did well is it made me want to catch up. I haven't caught up yet, but it had enough interesting things going on that it made me want to go look at some of those previous issues to get the context of why the dragon's where it is now.
It's funny because I feel like some of these do that. This one didn't, though, and I really wanted to like it more than it did. Again, I liked it more than Avengers and Iceman, but I feel like it failed that legacy test. So that's my concern. But I agree. I am more interested in this than I was prior. But
so far we have 3 legacy tests?
I think so.
I disagree, but okay.
Well, but you liked the issue, right? I mean, you liked.
And I'm looking forward to. Actually, I'm looking forward to the next one after this one.
Yeah, you liked that part of the story, and I agree. I like the Sabretooth part as well.
I literally went from having no interest in catching up on Iron Fist to having interest in catching up on Iron Fist. So I agree. It may not necessarily be the best jumping on point, but it at least stirs up enough interest to make you want to get that context.
Right. So let's move on to Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones number 13. Now, this is an interesting one because a lot of these characters that we're talking about are old characters with lots of history, right? Jessica Jones is a fairly recent character with a minimal amount of history. For my money...
I love how we call it a pretty recent character that's been around for...
10 years, not 50, right? I mean...
Well, yes, I agree, but it's been longer than 10.
04? 03, maybe? Yeah.
15 years.
Anyway, a much more recent character than some of his characters.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'll definitely give you that one.
So the legacy to return to, Jessica Jones has been handled by basically Brian Michael Bendis, and that's it. There isn't a legacy that needs to return to, but like Charlie said, I feel like she did a pretty good job of kind of rebuilding on a very classic villain, obviously important because of the Netflix show. Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaddis, the only people that have ever worked on this Jessica Jones comic, the original series on this. They're the only, what's his face? Did some art on it as well. They've had flashback artists that have done stuff, and Mark Bailey did some art.
But I mean, even when it comes to Jessica Jones, her story existed outside the Alias book when in the New Avengers book. But
that's always Bendis, right?
It's always been his writer. I'm just saying that he has done a very good job of, even if there wasn't a Jessica Jones or Alias comic at the time, that character has been around developing constantly since her introduction.
Right. I think if we go to the, if you want to call it the legacy test, I think it may kind of not fail it, but it is sort of just the next arc in the story. But I feel like it does start from a fresh spot. It introduces a classic villain. I think it isn't trying to throw a ton of random continuity and. Just within the intro and within the recap page, I feel like you are given a good setup and a good story. And those first few pages, they're just like all the pictures of the faces where it's kind of talking about, kind of giving you the motivation of the Purple Band. I get Jessica Jones is one of my absolute favorite comics as part of the more recent Marvel comics. And I think it's good. I think it continues to be good. It's probably one of the better issues of this newer series as well. But Jim, so go ahead. No, go ahead.
I have no opinion.
Okay.
I tried a couple pages of it. I like the Purple Man. I don't have a whole lot of ties to Jessica Jones. So
Did you watch the show?
I did, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it is.
I haven't gotten to it.
The thing with Jessica Jones is the comic is exactly like the show. Yeah. It is a rare case where they do an amazing job at just being like, yep, this is just a character, just straight up, I think by that last page is a good one.
No, for me, I haven't read any of the Alias stuff. That's one of the things on my list of stuff.
It's really good.
But I have been reading the Jessica Jones stuff since Bendis relaunched it last year or earlier this year, right?
But I think it was technically last year. Yeah.
I'll give it a second try.
But again, it doesn't pass the legacy test, and it gives us something like a fresh, new start to whatever, because it's continuing what has been going on from Jessica Jones in the previous issues.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what it does do is what, like Charlie said, where it brings the Purple Man back to, the up front, like, boom, here's this villain that Jessica, it's one of Jessica Jones's villains, because, she kind of inherited him.
Yeah.
But I've been enjoying it. I still enjoy this, but is it necessarily something that I'm going to tell somebody, this is where you want to jump on? No, I'm going to be like, go grab those Jessica Jones trades.
Yeah.
Or pick up number one of the...
Yeah, I think it's a decent jumping on point, but I don't think it's the first issue I would hand someone.
Yeah, but
if you I think if you have a reference for the character, I think you can just go straight into it.
The way I kind of look at this is if somebody walks into a comic shop, any comic shop, and just goes to the shelf and goes, oh, I watched the Netflix series. I know they're doing this big legacy event.
Yeah.
They can grab this issue, and everything you need to know was covered in the Netflix series.
Yep.
And I mean, along the lines of Iron Fist, it does maybe want to entice you to read the stuff prior.
Yeah. And if you fall in love with this, it's just like everything else. You'll be like, holy shit, there's so much more I can...
Yeah. Which is perfect, because I feel like Iron Fist didn't do a good job of explaining that stuff, but this one did. But, again, everyone's going to be different.
But I think that you hit a good point saying that this is the same creative team that's basically worked on solo Jessica Jones books.
Yeah.
So,
All right, let's move on to Royals, I don't even know what number this is, number 9, by Al Ewing and Javier Rodriguez.
Tell us what you thought, Ryan.
No. Before Ryan says anything, Charlie, how many pages did you finish?
Like 3 or 4. I couldn't. This is the only legacy title I couldn't read. I just started it, put it down, started it, put it down. I just couldn't do it.
Jeez, Charlie gave more than I did.
You kept trying. I'll give you more than... I tried. I picked mine up once and put it right back down.
Now, see, you all know that Al Ewing's run on the Legion of Superheroes is among my favorite comics of all time. But everything this guy does for Marvel is just absolute shit. I mean, here's where I said before, like, if you don't have something good or bad, if you have something kind of nothing to say, don't say it. No, I have a lot to say, but this book is fucking terrible.
Oh, it's
just
right off
indecipherable.
Right off the bat, the most annoying thing that I found was Gorgon and Medusa are having a relationship, and I'm like, when did this happen? Why is this happening? Wait, is this do I care about this?
In a previous issue, I guess. I mean, she wasn't with Gorgon any other time I've seen her in any other comic ever, so it's purely just an arc from that. But Marvel, the Inhumans will never be a thing. Please stop. Just stop. Just stop.
So I was.
You can just stop.
No. If they get Tom King back, I think I could.
Well, Tom King's Inhumans is actually my favorite comic of 2019. I mean, I won't lie there, but it's Tom King. It's just no.
You
it's
read
awful.
the whole thing.
It's fucking awful. I did. I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in it. I remember Medusa throwing up and having short gray hair. Like, I don't remember any. I cannot decipher a single thing that happens in this comic. You are talking to the person that spends hours discussing every issue of Multiversity when it was coming up by Grant Morrison. I cannot decipher what anything happens on any page in these comic books. I just hate Al Ewing as a writer. I mean, that's just what it is. I can't read a single thing the guy does. It's terrible. I just don't like him. And I mean, that's just the long and the short of it, because...
But his Legion of Superheroes.
Well, that's incredible, of course.
So this is something I was thinking about, just because, in general, I used to like the Inhumans. Like, I really did, from, like, the Fantastic Four and that kind of thing.
I still haven't read the Jenkins stuff, but I want to get that trade related.
And, like, even when they went off into space and were pink, like, I liked all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I realized what kills me. What is left of the Inhumans, quote-unquote, legacy to cover in this book? Like, they've already burnt down most of Inhumans' legacy to try to make the Inhumans...
And talk about failing the legacy test. This fails it in every conceivable fashion. You have none of the Inhumans are in this. They're not recognizable. It doesn't start a new story. It picks up just where it is.
It's a future story.
It doesn't introduce any. It's not a future story. It's right now.
No, because it continues from the Royals prior, and it's a future story.
I mean, I have no.
Did you read issue 1?
No, I've not read a single issue.
Why.
I mean,
it's a future story.
That is never at one point explained in this content in this comic. As far as I know, this is the current status of the Inhumans.
No, it's not. It's is it on the recap page?
Do they ever say that in there? I mean, are you given any indication that this is not taking place in the current time?
Thousands of years in the future? I don't know.
It's completely. Again, it did such a piss poor job of explaining anything within itself.
Oh, just so you know, this issue contains mild spoilers for Black Bolt 6. So if you bought both today, read that first.
Literally, no one bought both. Literally, no one bought either.
I was disappointed because it took a classic cover, Uncanny X-Men 142, which has Storm spiked by a Sentinel and Wolverine getting honey roasted, on the front cover, and just there's nothing inside that makes you want to read.
We could go into the lenticular cover homages all day, but we shouldn't.
All right, next one.
So I feel like I said I actually did like a lot of these comics. I feel like we're just front loaded with the absolute garbage. because
Maybe he just wanted to get this
Well,
out of the way.
for the most part,
let's go to your next book here.
For the most
I wanna
part-
see what you have to say
for
about
the
that.
most part, I think you may start to sense a shift here in our tone as this episode goes, if you've lasted this long. So, Spirits of Avengers number 1, it's a miniseries, 5-issue miniseries. This is Ghost Rider and Hellstorm and Satana, right?
Satana.
Yeah, Satana.
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 Yeah.
And Blade. Victor Gershel is the writer. I'm unfamiliar with him. And David Baldion is the artist. Now, this was a book.
And it was made for me.
This is a book that looks good. The writing is good. The writing is clear. I understand these characters. This is as legacy as we've gotten to this date,
Yes.
or to this point so far in the list. It's the real versions of these characters. It's actually a great homage cover. It's not the best lenticular, but I love the giant size X-Men homage. It ends, it ends on a maybe not the biggest cliffhanger, but it does introduce Blade into it. It's the real characters. Of this first week, this may be my favorite of all the titles, and you know what? And it actually sold better than all the other titles that we already talked about as well.
Now
There was interest in this book,
now
and I
this
liked
one-
it.
Now this one I picked up and I read through, and the art was good, and the story was good. And
This should not be a 5-issue miniseries. This should be an ongoing book, right?
No, absolutely. My only qualm with this book was that Satana's not even introduced.
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
first
yeah.
issue.
But she's on the cover. Yeah.
She's on the cover. She's not even introduced, and to me that took away a little bit of kind of, all right, you have a 4-character team, and you introduce three of them.
Whatever.
I mean, it's giant size X-Men, so maybe give yourself a couple more pages to include her. I don't know.
It didn't bother me too much, but I did notice that. But
I'm kind of used to that when they announce a new team or launch a new team book. A lot of times, that first issue, like it used to be, one issue would get the team together. Now it's the normal 6 issues
Well, I don't,
or whatever.
like, I don't mind if it takes a few issues to get the team together, but at least give us the characters first. I mean, when Johns did Justice League for the New 52, we didn't see we saw all the characters in the issue, but it wasn't the main focus of the issue.
Yeah.
Right? But we still saw Cyborg. We still saw, the other characters.
Yeah.
And then it developed in the course of the subsequent issues.
Yeah.
So, Jim,
These are your boys, man.
This is it. This is my team right here. And with the title Spirits of Vengeance, you can introduce so many people, so many different characters into the storyline. It is a true jumping on point. You don't have to pre-read Ghost Rider. You don't have to pre-read anything to jump onto this one. Like you said, it's the original characters. It's Damien Hellstrom. It's Satana. It's Ghost Rider. It's Blade. Yes, Satana is not. She's in the back. She's introduced in the back.
Yeah.
But like you said, this is a true jumping on point.
Yep.
It's starting as a 5-issue miniseries. Hopefully, it takes hold and will blossom into something else. Come on, Marvel Horror. Come on.
Oh wait, so then that they can renumber at number 1 after 5 issues?
Oh, please
start over.
please.
No. No, this is a good book. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Charlie.
So
Charlie hit.
it's not.
This is a piece of shit.
No, it was not a piece of shit, and I did like the art and stuff in it, but it also didn't grab me in a way like.
I mean,
I'll keep reading it, but it's not going to be something I'm going to go out of my way to read.
Well, look.
Meaning, like most things, I will read a couple issues if number 1's not horrible.
Every DC title that came out that week was better than this book. It's so much better than everything else that came out from Marvel as part of this, right? That's the thing. It's far from the best book you've ever read, but if you like these characters, I feel like
if you're desperate to throw good money
away, I don't disagree that. So this kind of goes back to I like how edgy Spirits of Vengeance can be in general.
Yeah,
and this didn't necessarily capture that edge to it yet, but I could see it developing that, which is why I'm interested to see where they go over the next couple of issues. Because if they get to that edge that kind of comes with these characters, especially putting them all together in a book, like this is one of those few times where like I'm always kind of complaining that even though I like Bunn as a writer, he always brings in some level of the occult and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
this would have been the book for him. Like, this would have been the one where it's just like, just go nuts. This
could be Marvel's Justice League Dark.
Okay.
Well, like I said, this book right here, you asked me earlier this week, or just the other day, whenever I picked up, you asked me why I was pulling the Rise of the Midnight Suns again.
Yeah.
And I was looking at Seeds of Darkness. This book had me going back in my Ghost Rider issues and Night Stalkers and Darkhold and looking up those books again because it got me excited again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So if you're looking for any of those titles, dollar bins are probably.
So move over to Venom 155. And I should take it back. Royals was not the worst comic of this week. Venom 155 was the worst comic of this week. By Mike Costa and Mark Bagley. How do you do Spirits of Vengeance so well and then screw up Venom so royally, no pun intended, so badly? Now look, the pitch for Venom here is that Venom hasn't been Eddie Brock in quite some time, right? But now he's back to be Eddie Brock. Now has the Venom symbiote, right? And
that was already the case.
That was already the case. Correct. So I read it when the series started, and I was like, who the fuck is this random person that's Venom? I'm like, this random homeless dude's Venom, whatever, this is stupid. And then I read it when Eddie Brock became Venom, and I'm like, well, this is still really bad. But okay, let's try the
150, right?
Yeah, when they renumbered it.
155.
Right. So let's try now the Legacies part of it. So I thought it actually started out okay because you have like one of the random dudes that was Venom, and I just hope they just kill everyone that's ever been Venom, not called Peter Parker or Eddie Brock. But you kind of get to start that, okay, maybe they're going to, this guy's going to go fight to get his Venom suit back, and I don't know. But then the story goes off into like the weirdest direction that Venom's like working kind of with the police, and he has a group of dinosaur men that live in the sewers,
aka the Morlocks.
No,
I know
it's not the Morlocks.
I know it's not the Morlocks,
Morlocks.
that's what they
No. They barbecue the Moloids.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And Venom helps these dinosaur people fight off the Mole Man's Moloids or Moloids.
Just so our listeners know, I want to paint a picture for you.
And one of the big giant mole monster things, and there's like this and so it ends with Kraven the Hunter going after Venom because he has a newspaper that says Dino Rights, race of dinosaurs living beneath city streets. What the fuck?
So the picture I want to
and like,
paint for the listener.
hold on. And he's trying to help the dinosaur people, and he like gives this like dead moloid back to the what the shit?
So quick picture.
What?
The pain on Ryan's face as he's trying to describe
It was
the
terrible.
story in this
It was
is
the
classic.
stupidest shit I've ever read in my entire life. It was so goddamn stupid.
Okay, so for me, I read this as one, this is stupid, and two, I didn't understand what was going on with Eddie Brock's trying to control the urges of the suit to eat things, but
that's legacy.
That's always been his thing. Yeah.
Okay, but then going into I read the Guardian stuff when they found the symbiont world.
Oh, it's totally
And, like the symbionts aren't aggressive at all.
Well, but this one is.
This one is.
Yeah, they've always portrayed Venom
as
as
Flash Thompson version of
it's the same Venom. I mean, it's the same symbiote.
I think what it is it's and Bagley's art is
that's terrible.
It hasn't stood the test of time.
No, it's terrible.
I read it. I couldn't tell you what the hell was in it. I think your recap said it best.
Yeah.
I mean, people who like Venom,
no, they won't. They'll hate this. It's terrible. It's not Venom at all. Jim, you like Venom? What the hell you get out of this? Anything?
I couldn't get. I tell you what. You know what I enjoyed? I enjoyed the last 3 pages.
Summary pages.
The summary pages of Venom's origin.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the art, and I enjoyed the little summary of his origin, But that was the best part of the book.
Just
honestly.
pretend no appearance ever again happened.
This was, I mean, if you go to the last 3 pages, this is the legacy right here.
Yeah,
this is the whole legacy.
Yeah.
And after that, nothing else. You don't need to read the front of the book.
Maybe that's what Marvel Legacy is all about. Just the 3 pages at the end of all the books. That's the summary of.
I basically pretended Nova hasn't existed in 10 years, so you can pretend the last 10 years of Venom haven't happened either.
Yeah, I don't know who this guy is, besides number 370545.
Yeah, it's one of the other random dudes that was Venom for half a minute.
Venom, and then I didn't know where the hell Kraven came out of nowhere.
Yeah, so. You just read a newspaper that...
Yeah. I just think it's great that Kraven still reads a fucking newspaper.
Huh. Yeah,
it's not like he saw it on his phone.
And he's not even reading. It's not even like a regular newspaper. It's like some tabloid trash. Exactly. So whatever. Again, I mean, I guess it passes the legacy test because it's Eddie Brock. I guess, but that's about it. You're gonna be a hardcore Venom fan to get anything out of this comic.
So I'm not saying that this comic was good per se. I would not go that far.
I think this episode I'm just enjoying.
Here's the way I kind of look at it. I've read X-Men and Venom miniseries in the past, and I've never really gone, I need a Venom ongoing in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoy a little bit of this sort of miniseries with the whole trying to keep the symbiote in check, and I do feel like this captured some of that well. Like, it didn't bother me the fact that he went, oh, I can go eat with the dinosaur people. I'm sure they'd have something good to eat. Like, I don't know where the dinosaur people came from, but they have so many underground civilizations at this point in Marvel. What's another one?
The moles, and then there's the dinosaurs.
And even from that kind of perspective, if you kind of think back to Kraven's origins and that kind of stuff, he's always jumping on newspaper articles that get him aware of Spider-Man and consider him the next big hunt. It totally makes sense that a race of dinosaur people, Kraven would go, you know what? I should go hunt them. That is very true to the Kraven character. But
to a tablet.
But when you kind of combine all this together in a Venom book, that's where it starts to lose. Like, if this was, I hate to say it, if this was part of Gwenpool or something, it would fit more within just the absurdity of that title in the first place.
Well, the problem is
Venom doesn't tend to come with sort of Venom always kind of teeters on that kind of horror kind of thing. Like, it was that whole idea of, well, I'm going to go out to be a hero, but I need to eat brains, so I guess I'll just eat the brains of bad people. Like, that was always sort of the edge of the Venom book, and they're trying to turn him in more.
He was in Thunderbolts for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah, a version of him, yes.
Oh, okay. Was it Brock?
No, it was Scorpion.
Oh, yes, that's right.
But, so, I kind of feel like the setting doesn't fit the Venom character, even though they're carrying forward some of the stuff that I like of the Legacy, and I don't find some of the premise bad. It just doesn't fit a Venom book. Like, a Venom book should almost teeter on a horror space.
Yeah.
Like, everybody who looks at Venom should be somewhat scared of him, even if he's a perfect character that, oh, I just saved somebody and they ran off screaming.
Mm-hmm. Venom shouldn't be underground. Venom should be up by the skyscrapers and stuff. You know, and Carnage should be a slasher book. He doesn't belong in the frickin' in the underground.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because that's where Carnage was in his last miniseries, Underground.
So move on to X-Men Gold. This is the final book of week 1 here, with the distinction of having the absolute worst cover. This will go down in history as like among the worst covers in all of comic book history. The X-Men Gold.
It looks like a really bad kids book.
They make Beast look like the main guy in American Dad. Like, right? Doesn't he? Like, I mean, it's coming.
I'm not sure you did it, but that's hilarious.
Yeah, it looks like your guy who did Static X drew that one.
Mike Allred?
I mean, X-Static.
Mike Allred?
Yeah.
No.
It's not. No, it's just as bad.
I would like it.
Justice.
I like Allred's work better.
Get the fuck out! Get off this podcast. Mike Allred's amazing. It's seriously.
Have our opinions, and that's mine.
God, it really is like the worst cover I've ever seen in my life.
Like Trump?
They make everyone look like ass. Just straight up ass. Just. I don't even. Who is that? Who is that? Is that Phoenix?
That's Rachel.
Yeah.
Prestige.
I will never call her Prestige. Her name is Phoenix. Is that Phoenix?
Yeah, that's Rachel.
Who's that?
Let me see.
Looks like the lead singer of the Eurythmics. Who is that? I don't know. Next to Iceman? I have no idea who that character is. I could not tell you who that character is. No, is it?
That's dangerous because the wings are sitting right behind him.
Oh, are wings there?
Yes, his wings are there.
They were drawn so poorly you couldn't tell they were wings.
I don't.
The wings are
The
up
wings are
above.
up. The wings are going up.
Whoever's
Straight up.
standing next to him, the wings are above them. He has the pseudo metal ones.
I think.
So this is just the worst cover.
I think he
ever.
has no feet either. Anyway, this really is the worst comic of all time. I'm sorry, the worst cover of all time. Now, I may kind of have broken a rule because I read this and I read Blue together. I read parts 1 and 2 together because it's a 4-part crossover, right? This is Mark Guggenheim and Mike Mayhew. Now, first I want to start with the art real quick. Actually, Mike Mayhew's an amazing
Not the cover art. We're talking about the inside.
interior art. Mike Mayhew's an incredible cover artist.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. Maybe he's not meant for interior art. There was something very off on his art inside this book. And again, he doesn't do a lot of interior. He does a lot of covers. Again, sometimes people are just better at the static image than sequential art. It never looked right. I don't know. But what the fuck? I just jump over this table and strangle you.
Don't say Sugarman right now. That's his trigger word.
So the pitch for this 4-issue crossover, I'm actually pretty excited for this. It's X-Men Gold and X-Men Blue, and their Mojo has said our ratings are slipping. We all know Mojo. He controls like this TV dimension, right? Yeah. And Mojo's like, our ratings are slipping. We're going to bring back the greatest hits of the X-Men and throw them into this battle of the greatest hits and split them up into all sorts of parts of the world. And I mean, the pitch is awesome, right?
Well, it's the same pitch Marvel made for making this book.
For Legacy, right? Exactly.
So we'll get into the trolling.
So I when I read the books back to back, and again, we'll talk about Blue later. I thought Blue was the superior book by far, but I thought the setup in Gold was good. I've liked Gold the entire run of Gold.
No, Gold's been good.
Not my favorite, not the best X-Men comic that's ever been published,
but better than it's been.
Oh, way better than it's been. I've enjoyed the book. I enjoyed this. I just think Blue is a vastly superior. Maybe just because they didn't have to do the setup. They were in the middle of the book. We'll get to Blue when we get to Blue. But I think this is a good issue. I think it passes the legacy test. It doesn't have to be 100% classic. It still has modern elements to it. And I love Kitty Pryde as a team leader. She's been great. I love Kitty Pryde, one of my favorite characters. She's been a regular character, the regular leader this whole time. Again, it's fun seeing Mojo. It's fun seeing the Blue and Gold team. Again, I actually have kind of turned around. I don't like the characters in Blue, but I like the title. The X-Men Blue has made me like the characters despite my disinterest in the teenage X-Men characters. But I thought this was good. I think this is a good book. If you're reading Gold, keep going. If you haven't, again, I feel like you can pick this up. The only thing you would need to know is the continuity of the kids. That the original 5 X-Men have traveled from the past to the future, and they basically have replaced themselves, kind of.
And you can just read the previously.
Yeah, and I guess what's his face is in this Wolverine's kid. James, yeah.
He's in Blue.
Young man Logan is talking to old man Logan. He's in Blue. Yeah. He comes from the Ultimate Comics. So that's maybe the only Jim Hudson. Yeah, that's really the only thing you need to know. So young man Logan talking to old man Logan. And normal man Logan's over in regular man Logan. I think they start calling him. But yeah, really good. I think passes the legacy test. Worth a read. Definitely worth a read.
I've liked X-Men Gold. This, again, continues the story we've had in the beginning. So for me, it doesn't necessarily pass the legacy test completely, because it's not really anything...
Well, like all of Gold, I feel like it is trying to...
It is yeah. Like, if number 1 was the legacy title...
Well, and again, I want to briefly kind of talk about this real quick. When I say it passes the legacy test, I don't need this to go back to reset continuity back to the 60s. No. That's not what we're saying. But I want it to feel like the characters, how they should feel. They're recognizable as their characters. Again, I don't mind new villains and new plots, but I want these books to have something that I can connect to as a longtime reader of these titles. And I feel like Gold has done that through its current arcs, much better so than the last couple of years of X-Men titles.
So for me, I mean, I enjoyed the read of it.
You hated that page, though.
I hated this page, and I hated the previous page of the previous issue because Guggenheim like flat out slaps you in the face with kind of this Marvel Legacy.
I mean, read the line, but I mean that's Mojo.
Yeah, well, yeah, but Old Man Logan says you're saying someone's trying to kill us with nostalgia, and Mojo goes, "Oh, not nostalgia, my octogarian friend, legacy, the greatest hits as it were, and the greatest thing about these hits, they hit back." I'm like,
I feel like that's Mojo,
it feels like something Mojo would say. But the word choice that they use, especially in the previous one and this issue, just makes me go, ooh.
Again,
I'm already someone in the inkling that doesn't. It could turn to shit, and I drop the book in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's like things like that those slight little comments about those things. To me, it's like, all right, you can kill me with one line. I mean, X-Men Blue did it with, "Can you train us to be ninjas?" So. I enjoyed X-Men Gold despite these little lines of annoyance towards Legacy. But, I think this is a good start at jumping on point. I mean, it's slightly annoying that it again falls under the team-up thing or the crossover event with X-Men Blue. But I think that this one actually does a good job crossing over, far superior than what we had in the Avengers.
Oh yeah! Oh, way better, way better.
So it's the villain is set up for the crossover, all that stuff. It's done very well. So overall, yes. I mean, this is probably one of the titles that you should probably check this out if you haven't checked out.
Jim and Charlie,
I'm good, Charlie.
I liked it. I expected to like it though. I will say this: one of the reasons why the crossover works so well in this is. There's already a long history of the various X-Men teams getting together to do baseball or whatnot. So whenever they want to do a crossover, they can always just start with that, and it fulfills the legacy test because you don't need to know more than that. That's just something that they built into that narrative already. And there are moments in these issues that take me right back to the different events, but I kind of wish some of them had a little more room to breathe. Like, it feels like because you're jumping from event to event to event, you don't really get taken back into that world. You'll get, like, a panel or something will kind of spark some of that, but you're not really re-exploring these worlds. It's
in the crossover? Yeah. Well, that's the point of it, right? I mean,
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that...
They're not going to explore that.
No, but right now it feels like each of these things are more of a cameo of something that happened than anything else.
Yeah. Well, I think that's totally accurate.
Yeah, and I would like it to have a little more breathing room than that. Like
have an issue actually expand out in one of these.
Well, even the whole idea of we need to flee from the Sentinels and hide here, or we need to, it's sort of interesting because it makes sense from the narrative of the book, and I'm not complaining because it's not a plot hole, it's not anything like that. It's just, for me personally, especially when you're kind of celebrating what's happened in the past, I'd like a little more time celebrating what's happened in the past.
Sure, understood.
Well, we'll get to Blue in a little bit, but I think that what Charlie's saying is X-Men Gold and X-Men Blue, or at least reading through this issue, you're just, it's yes, it's Mojo, yes, this is the type of character, so we're just kind of seeing these things happen, but they happen so quickly that there's the only real character stuff that we see is in the beginning of the book. And then by the time the story starts to take off, it's just, oh, look at this scene. 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 And you really don't get the sense that they're in danger. It's like channel surfing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It feels like somebody's channel surfing through the X-Men's greatest hits.
Well, channel surfing in the Mojo world is very appropriate. Okay, because that would make sense. All right? I mean, Mojo is so freaking corny. I mean, at the very end, so pick your favorites, place your bets, because this is going to be uncanny.
Yeah.
God. That is just straight up Mojo. Right. As much as I didn't like the cover, I enjoyed the interiors. I wish there would have been more. I feel like this could have been a thicker book. I feel like there could have been some more pages added to this book to enjoy a little bit more. But
that's every comic. I mean,
yeah. Well, we have the second part coming up, so that was good. I enjoyed this one a lot.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to move on to week 2 here. I don't want too long, so we'll burn through these a little quicker.
Wait, can I ask a question? Has anything from this week tied into Marvel Legacy number 1?
We can talk about that.
Week 1? No, I don't believe so. Week 2, I think only Deadpool. Yeah, I think only Deadpool from week 2. All new Wolverine. What is this? Number 25, Tom Taylor and Juan Cabal. So, all new Wolverine, that is X-23, is this Wolverine's clone. She's been running around for a little while.
And Dakin.
And Dakin, Wolverine's kid, is back, I guess, and playing a role in this. So I actually liked All New Wolverine when the book started, and again, this is a book that kind of fails the legacy test because there's no legacy to go back to. It's just continuing adventures of Laura. But, I did fall off reading this book, although I did like this issue. I generally hate Dakin, but again, I thought he was pretty okay in this issue.
Blown up.
Yeah, he's still in here somewhere, though. They kidnap him.
At least his arm's
The main kind of story is in this is that at the end she finds her mom is still around, her biological mom. Yeah. If you've been reading All New Wolverine, I think it continues what it's been. It's not anything different. If you haven't, it's totally skippable. If you have no interest, there's no legacy to go back to on this.
I mean, for me, it didn't really make me care about anything so much. And then the funny thing is you read through the issue, and you kind of get these flashback scenes a little bit of what happened. And it's talking about her mother dying, and then you go to the summary thing, and it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
You just got told some of this stuff prior, and then it's like, oh look, we get Bagley's art drawn and Robbie Thompson writing the summary of the thing that you kind of just saw in the middle of this book.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, it was just like, oh, okay, it's All New Wolverine. I read the first handful of issues of it. And
it's the same book.
Reading,
like a lot of these, it's the same book you've already read, or you haven't read, and just no one's going to jump on this.
Just continuing the 24 issues that came before.
No one's going to jump on this. Maybe Jim.
No, I don't. I have not been collecting the new Wolverine, the all new Wolverine. I have not been reading it. I read this issue. I don't feel the impulse to go out and collect the other 24 issues or anything else. It's not really a good jumping on point. Summary page. Not so much. Okay. Yeah, so I got nothing on this one.
Charlie?
This is one of those few cases where I wish Toby was here because
he likes X-23.
Yeah.
He likes X-23 a lot. I have no problem with X-23, but I don't like... I like her in miniseries. I like her in some of what they've done in the X-Men books.
Is it funny that none of us will call her Wolverine? Yeah. She's X-23.
She's X-23.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily feel like this was bad, but I was never going to rush out to buy this comic anyways.
No.
It just, as you said, I don't have enough attachment to these characters in this day and age to, if I wasn't reading it for the sort of podcast, I might have skimmed through it, but I would not have purchased today.
Oh, like I said, I read the first handful of issues and I enjoyed it, but I fell off because I just didn't, not going to keep up with everything. And this issue was okay, yeah. I mean, I may read another issue or two, but yeah, it's unlikely I'll be reading in 10 more issues. Let's jump all over to Amazing Spider-Man 789 by Dan Slott and Stuart Immonen. Now, if there is a book that passes the legacy test and yet still continues the continuity and yet still tries to get you back in those old feels, it's Amazing Spider-Man 789. I've been back and forth on Slott. I've been back and forth on Amazing Spider-Man in the last few relaunches because it just never ends. This book does, I think, everything that Legacy, everything that
Dan Slott built, he tore down.
Right. I think this does everything Legacy is kind of setting out to do. It actually does it. It continues the plot, but it's an okay jumping on point. It does give you a good setup. Peter Parker, who up until previously had been running Parker Industries and basically is Tony Stark 2.0, everything completely collapses and everything's back to not normal, but normal-ish.
Back to down and out Peter.
Right, which is the Peter that we all want, which is the Peter we all like.
I like Dan's Homage to Mockingbird 8.
Well, yeah, because he's been shacking up with Mockingbird recently. Now that he's sleeping on our couch, wearing her "Ask Me About My Feminist Agenda" T-shirt. Yeah. Because he's got to wear her shirt because she's the one making all the money now. So, and it's just some okay superhero battles, and this feels more like a Peter Parker or like a Spider-Man comic than I've read since basically the end of Superior. They just kept. I didn't mind the start of Parker Industries and where it went, but as it went on, it just got too it's just so far away from the character.
After event.
It was that, and it just not Peter Parker. We haven't had Peter Parker in like 5 years at this point. This feels like Peter Parker. It's relatable. It's the character people like. It's good art. It's good writing. It's a fun story. They fight the Griffin just because he's like it's the stupidest plot, but it's hilarious, right? Because it's the fucking Griffin. He's just like, I steal money to buy things. Why don't I just steal things? And he starts stealing like hot dogs or something. It's kind of funny. But it just feels like Peter Parker. This feels like Spider-Man. So yeah, I liked it. I really liked it. I was really back and forth on Slot's run, but I'm back. So it was a good issue, and yeah, definitely back on my kind of immediate reading pile because I had fallen way behind. I don't even know that I read the last couple issues prior to Legacy. I heard that Green Goblin issue was really good. I definitely didn't read that one.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I do need to read that one.
Yeah, I got my Spider-Man reading was very little, and then when I came back to comics, it was One More Day, and I was like, oh god, and this was horrible. And then we got Brand New Day, and I started to like it, and I enjoyed it, and it went on. And then Dan Slott came on, and he had some good runs, and Peter's life was changing. The Parker Industry stuff was going strong. But then it was just like event after event after event, and then we brought S.H.I.E.L.D. into it.
Yeah.
And made this convoluted mess of garbage, and then it's finally I stopped reading the current run at some point. I just don't remember when that was. I think it was after when everyone was spiders, or no, it was when they brought everyone back from the dead.
Yeah, I mean that was at the start of this run. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was like
that was just pre Spider-Verse stuff. Not Spider-Verse. Just pre Spider-Verse.
No,
Spider-Verse stuff.
Spider-Verse happened, and then the bringing everybody back from the dead.
What was that? What was that arc?
Which one?
The one that brings back Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
And everybody. It was.
I can picture the covers for it.
Yeah, it was the Jackal.
Clone Conspiracy.
Clone Conspiracy. Sorry, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
So
it's post Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
But that's Clone Conspiracy. Yeah. Which is this run.
Yeah. Which I kind of just stopped after that.
Yeah. It wasn't very good.
I picked up this issue, read it, and there were things I'm like, okay, it's still Dan Slott. So there's things that I'm like, okay, But again, he's down and out. He's fighting the Griffin. He's apparently in a relationship now with Mockingbird.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of has been going on since the S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff they introduced at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say the beginning of this volume because they renumbered back to the other one.
It's the beginning of this
volume.
volume.
Fuck you for back issue, guys.
The beginning of this volume.
So, yes, but I think it does, like you said, a really good job giving you a starting point for new readers to come back to Spider-Man. It's not bad. It's well drawn, So overall, I think it does what we want Legacy to be doing, and that's giving us the characters back that we, the essence of the characters that we love. So I like the nod to the feminist agenda cover for Mockingbird 8. I thought that was great. And he even says, "This is your shirt."
It's not just a cover. I mean, she has a shirt regularly. So.
Yeah, she has that shirt regularly, but it was that was the big controversy.
Yeah, of course. Jim, Charlie, anything? Spider-Man?
I have not been reading Spider-Man for a long.
Yeah.
Since Superior, a long time. So I read Superior, and I didn't jump onto the new Spider-Man #1, and that's still on Silk and all that. So I have no ties to this. I do like the inside cover. I do like the new cover. It looks almost Alex Ross.
It is Alex Ross,
right? And I do like the summary of his teardown of his company. I do like the teardown of his company. I thought it was kind of hilarious. So, like you said, it is down and out Peter, Yeah, let's see where it goes from here.
Yeah. Immediately into a crossover with Venom is where it's going. No, I'm dead serious.
I know. That's why I
Yeah.
said, fuck.
Yeah.
Let him be down in the dumps for a minute.
Most of this issue I didn't like.
Wow.
Whoa.
Okay.
I know. Amazing.
Wow.
There's something about the idea of Peter crashing on a couch, not bothering to do laundry, not bothering to go outside, that bothered the crap out of me. Like, I don't mind a down and out Peter. I don't mind a Peter that runs to sort of the Spider-Man side of his identity. Like the end of this issue kind of put him back to where I'm more okay, where typically when Spider-Man is down and out, he doesn't collapse into depression. He just throws himself into his alternate identity more than he should.
Well, here's the thing. It's the reverse, right? It wasn't Spider-Man that failed. It's Peter Parker that failed. Peter Parker is the one that lost, so he's turning to Spider-Man to be his kind of getaway.
But that's where it ends, and that's the part I liked.
Yeah.
When Peter was just doing nothing, that bothered me.
If you bankrupt $1 trillion company, let me know how excited you are to get out of bed, okay? But okay, no, I mean, you're going to keep reading, and it's Spider-Man. It's that.
Well, yeah, it's not like I'm going to stop reading. I just, if the issue had ended with him back on the couch,
well, they might have gotten back on the couch.
You understand my point.
Yeah.
I would have been, like, I can deal with it for a little bit like that, but I really didn't like the idea that he's, like, I did really like when he got all upset about the news report and he went to go confront Robbie. Like, that part I liked. I liked the part that he even acknowledged the fact that he shouldn't have gone to confront Robbie. Like, that stuff I liked when he actually had to kind of go outside. But to me, it's Spider-Man is part of his coping mechanism. We've seen this time and time again when things are sucking for Peter, he just throws himself more into Spider-Man. And that's kind of where I felt like this should have started. He shouldn't just be sitting on this couch. Or not even his couch, Mockingbird's couch.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when you're on bottom, there's nowhere to go but up.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will improve more and more. So.
We're going to move on to Defenders, number 6. Now, I got to talk about this book for a second, because Defenders came out around the time, I think right around the time we were starting to do the store move and get that situated, and I got a big stack of comics that I was reading. And I like Bendis, right? David Marquez, the artist, is a really, really good artist. I was pretty excited for this book. Again, it came out around the time of the Defender show. But like a lot of things, it sits in my pile, it sits around. So when 6 came out, I think we had sold out of issue 4, and I never had a chance to read it. And I had the others, and I was like, I need to burn through these. I need to read this. I'm like, all right. So I finally was like, all right, let me track down my missing issue. I borrowed it from a friend. And I was like, all right, cool. I got all 6 issues here. Let me read the first 5 because it led right up to it. So we get Defenders number 6. Let me start by saying, plot-wise, again, it completely fails the legacy test as far as being a new issue because it's
the last issue of the story.
Right. It was the last issue before the next big story arc comes out. So I feel like these characters, and especially if you've seen the Netflix shows or you've read Bendis books, it's all the characters that he deals with.
Like the Mighty Avengers all over.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just wait a month and do this as part of Legacy next month. I think because this is the last issue of a story arc. It makes no sense to be Legacy.
Yeah.
This book fails in every conceivable way as for what we want from a Legacy title. That said, fuck Legacy. Defenders is by far the best book Marvel's publishing these days. By far. I loved these 6 issues. Holy crap did I love these 6 issues. I read through them and I was like, I read these, I burned through them so quickly and I was like, oh my god, I was blown away by how much I like these. This is Bendis's guys, these are his characters, he just completely nails them. It's I think the best he's written them. David Marquez is such a good artist, and again, I liked him prior to this, right, but his art, he's on he is A+ art at this point. I think if you have any interest in Luke Cage, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, Kingpin, Elektra, Punisher, Deadpool's in it, and I like him wearing his Netflix shirt. That was pretty funny. Look, Deadpool appears, and I didn't hate the comic. It was a really good. He just shows it very briefly, right? Black Cat, Hammerhead. They have
A plethora of
they have-
obscure characters.
yeah, well that, and they have Matt Murdock in court, right? Obviously, what's his face? Not Copperhead. What's this guy's name? Diamondback is the main villain, right? It's bringing Diamondback back. Makes sense. It's tying with the Luke Cage show and everything like that. By far and away, the best book. I don't care about Legacy. Legacy's totally. Let's not even talk about Legacy anymore. This book is really good. The trade should be out soon. I don't know. I mean, it's selling all right as Bendis, right? But I mean, I felt like no one was talking about it. I don't have a lot of subs for it, and it just kind of sat in my pile and I didn't get to it. Easily my favorite Marvel comic yet right now. Easily the best book I've read. I mean, I still love Thor. There's still many really good Marvel comics out there right now. This book, top of the pile, instantly. Burn through it, far and away the best. So, I don't care if it passes the Legacy test or not. It's totally the best book on the market that Marvel's publishing right now. Go read it. It's got a terrible cover. But, I mean, it's got a great regular cover. Let's just open it up. I just want to tear the lenticular cover off. It's an awesome regular
most
cover.
Most of these, I just want to tear the lenticular cover off.
Yeah.
But, no, like I said, I've read, I think I read most of the 6 issues, or 5 issues prior. I think I might have missed one.
Yeah.
But overall, I've enjoyed the Bendis Defender stuff. At first, I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, but I've enjoyed it. You know, along the same lines as like Iron Fist and Jessica Jones. I'm like, they're there, they're okay. I read them. Like, you know, Defenders isn't bad. I'm not going to tote it as the best book Marvel's publishing, but it's damn near the top of quality wise for stuff that they're publishing. The homage cover and the old cover that they homage to and the current cover don't match up at all.
Which is good, because you can actually tell there's a difference.
You can tell there's a difference in some of it. But yeah, I mean, not a jumping on point for Defenders.
No.
Which is really sad because, you know, they could have really done, if they had waited and put the next issue's Defenders as the Legacy one, and really kind of got people jumping on there, and then the trade came out like right after, so people would go, oh, let me check out the first 6 issues. I think that would have been a better, you know, use of the Legacy thing, because that's basically what they're going for, because there's no real rebirth type stuff in it. It's just a gimmick that doesn't, like you said, it doesn't hit the Legacy mark. It doesn't hit the Legacy mark. Now, some of these do, but they do kind of with a handicap.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Jim?
I do like the inside cover. I did think it was really nice. I did enjoy the Defenders storyline. Ryan did recommend it earlier this week, so I picked up the ones that were available. And like you said, it's not a jumping on point, but it's a good finish to a storyline. And you know, the next storyline coming up, I think I'm be encouraged to pick it up. So,
Charlie,
So yeah,
you hated this
I
comic,
love the
didn't you?
Defender.
Oh, okay.
No, I do. In fact, I'm just thinking about it. Like, if it comes to like stuff Bendis is writing, like his Jessica Jones books right now and the Defenders book are some of the best stuff I've read from him in a long time. Actually.
Definitely.
Like his Iron Man stuff's okay, but his Jessica Jones, bringing that team back together and doing more of that style story has been phenomenal. And this feels like the natural sort of successor to everything he's done, which is why that's the direction they went in the Netflix shows and all that. Like, I don't always kind of want to go back to sort of the Netflix shows, but to me, when it comes to sort of a synergy between the comic books and what's out there in terms of other media, these books do it better than anything else in the market. Like, you can go directly from the Jessica Jones show to reading Alias or just jumping on to Jessica Jones, and you're not going to be lost. I feel like Defenders are the same way. Like, all the characters are just very good and true, and you could literally go from watching any of the Netflix shows and going, you know, I have some more interesting stuff like this, and immediately jump to this. And it's the perfect sort of synergy between what's going on in the books and out of the books. Yeah. And I love it when there's stuff like that going on.
Yeah. We're going a little longer, so we're going to burn through a few of these. Despicable Deadpool 287 by Jerry Dugan and Scott Koblish. Charlie? Charlie? I have nothing to say about it. This is Deadpool. That's stupid. Sure, I read it.
I think I read one.
It's because it's about Cable, so I want to hear Charlie's. I want to hear Charlie's take.
how do I put this?
You look angry.
No, it's not angry. So I have not been reading Deadpool in a very long time.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
And it feels like there may have been something that happened in some issues prior to this that I missed, and I don't know if I missed it. I'm really interested in the fact that they're utilizing Strife. Like, that piqued my interest quite a bit. Like, I kind of like the idea of somebody having something over Deadpool to sort of bring him back to a, here's your target, go after your target, because that's the whole mercenary aspect of the character in the first place. So I kind of feel like it passes the legacy test in the way that it does bring back some classic confrontation. It does bring back some stuff that was key to the character when he was introduced. I wish there was a little more to it, but that may have just come in a previous issue, in which case I'm annoyed that they didn't just save it for this issue. Because I think if they had made this either a bigger issue or started it a little bit farther back so you could see what led to these actions and all that, I would have been a little more into it. But I like the overall premise. I like the fact that Strife is basically now has the ability to turn Deadpool into his mercenary because of the attachments Deadpool now has.
Yeah. Let's go to Falcon, number 1. I had my creator team open on the last page. There we go. It's Rodney Barnes and Joshua Cesaro. I'm not familiar with either of these creators. That said, it's a very political book. Lots of inner city stuff, gang violence. Pretty typical for Falcon. I thought, well, this is going to last 5 issues and get canceled because, I don't, the Sam Wilson Cap book, I guess it was Cap, so it was tying into events. I figured, this is, basically a miniseries here. Falcon's a cool character, but again, tough sell. But he gets the last page, and Blackheart's in it. And I was like, oh, I like Blackheart. Okay, maybe I'll read one more issue and see where it goes. But I don't know. It's alright. I have a feeling we're not going to get too many other opinions other than that on it. It wasn't terrible. Yeah. It was pretty much what I expected. And then I was like, oh, Blackheart, that's a cool villain for Falcon to fight. That's unexpected. Okay, you got me on that last page. I'll keep reading.
I had a semi-issue with the fact that I don't know where things currently stand. Because that book would... Well, not with Sam, but with Steve. Like, we saw the quote-unquote true Captain America reemerge and take down the false Hydra Captain America.
Oh yeah, there's but people don't trust that, Cap's, they don't know that he's, a fake Cap, or...
It was...
It's confusing.
Said, there was an aspect of this book where they're acting like Steve is the one that betrayed everybody. They're acting like somehow Falcon was to blame because he was colluding and didn't see it. And
I guess they didn't. I guess the world doesn't know that it was a cosmic cube that changed everything.
So as I said, I don't understand the current. This book specifically confused me.
Yeah.
Did you guys read the Generations?
No.
Issue?
No.
So in the Generations issue, Sam gets plucked out, taken to the past, and lives an entire lifetime.
Okay.
And then he gets shoved back into the...
they all do that, right?
No.
Well, not an entire lifetime.
No, but they all
get taken out and they have a little adventure and they're done. Sam actually lives the entire lifetime in the world where Cap is agent of Hydra?
Okay.
It's really confusing. Because you're like, well, is he living this time period again, but it's the normal time period, or is he living it after the Cosmic Cube stuff is meddled with Steve's history?
Yeah.
And then so he comes back, and then you jump into this Falcon book, and, he's been, on top and doing all these big things, and he's in Avengers and doing all the stuff. It's like, we're going to go right back down to street level. And I'm like, okay, but it to me, it just felt like there was something missing from the book.
Yeah.
It felt forced, especially with the young what's his name? The U.S. Avenger kid.
Patriot.
Oh yeah, I kind of like that they brought Patriot back. That's
right,
cool.
It's like a forced. Oh, here's a Falcon, but you have to have a Cap in your book, right, for it to be significant.
Yeah.
And then you come to the end, like you said with Blackheart, and I'm like, all right, who's Blackheart? I don't know who this character is.
Sure, that's okay.
I don't. It's some obscure villain.
Doctor Strange villain, Silver Surfer villain.
So I have no idea who this villain is. I have no interest. So to me, it's
Demon of Hell, one of the.
I'll tell you in a second.
He's what's his face's kid. Mephisto's kid.
Mephisto's
Yeah.
But for me, is this a good jumping on point?
No.
It does.
Well, it's really confusing based off the end of Secret Empire.
Yeah, it's really confusing based off the Secret Empire, and not to mention that I'm like, does it really entice me to read more?
So, Jim, what do you think of the last page?
I have no real love for Falcon. I've read him throughout the years. I don't have a whole lot of ties to him.
Sure.
Could care less, actually. So even whenever he was Captain, still didn't even care.
Neither did anyone else. Neither did anyone else.
When it comes to Blackheart and Mephisto, that's a love. So, I really enjoyed seeing Blackheart make an appearance. He hasn't been around for a long time.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything.
He's an obscure villain, but also he has some pretty twisted powers. So
is that what passes the legacy?
It would. Blackheart showing up actually enticed me to look forward to the next issue.
Yeah.
So,
I'll read at least another issue too, see where it goes.
Yeah.
All right, Unbelievable Gwenpool.
Didn't read it.
Now we don't have to spend a lot of time on this because I'm sure no one got through this.
I didn't even.
I read the entire thing.
I didn't pick it up.
Okay.
You did not.
I did so.
I have to talk about. I have a thing to say about Gwenpool. Okay, it's by Christopher Hastings and
fantastic in the outfit.
Guri Hiru is the artist. Guri Hiru. I don't know what that means. So look, we make fun of Gwenpool a lot on this podcast for good reasons. Gwenpool is terrible, just terrible. Okay. Now my experience with Gwenpool outside
It's become personal.
the random appearances in other books, like I think I got a few pages in the Champions issue she was in. She'll pop up from time to time. I read that backup comic that she was in, and we were just talking about this Howard the Duck, right? And I read the first issue, and I don't know if I just completely blanked out everything about this character, or if I just
She got a statue pretty fast.
if I just completely ignored everything. I read the issues and it just right on my brain, and I just didn't think about it because. So the pitch of this character, for those that may be unaware, is that she's from theoretically our world, the real world, all right? And she's like taken into this comic book. Now, there's a couple comics published by DC where this is a thing that I actually really, really like.
Yeah.
Superboy Prime, right? Superboy Prime, and Animal Man, the original Animal Man run, where he realizes he's a comic book character. I love this idea. It's so cool, right? So when I read the recap, and I read that, I was like, I mean, I read a couple comics of her, and it's stupid, but I guess I didn't realize that. So I'm reading this book, and I'm like, yeah, this book is just awful. Just awful. But then you get to the last couple pages, and for some reason, Pace Pop Pete's in this. I mean, he hasn't been Pace Pop Pete in 30 years, so I don't know. I don't know where
Trapster.
this. Yeah, Trapster. Yeah, I don't know why this like French.
Did they name? I didn't even get that far. Did they name him Pace Pop?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why she's Pace Pop Pete in this issue.
For years.
But
part of the Frightful Four.
She does something that
pushes him out of the panel.
Yeah. She takes him out of the page and throws him off the side of the comic page into just the white nothing.
So that's Hickman's wife area, right?
I don't know. The white event?
Yeah. I can just see Bryce.
Bryce is just fuming right now. So look, Gwenpool is terrible. Everything about Gwenpool is terrible. However,
oh my god,
those were not the worst 4 pages I've ever read, and I was like, that's actually kind of cool. My interest in reading more of Gwenpool is still 0. But I did not know that about this character. So, that's interesting. Let's move on to Uncanny Avengers. Number 28. This is the X-Men Avengers team up with, speaking of terrible costumes, please, someone change Quicksilver's costume back to normal. I don't like his VCR fast-forward button costume. It's the stupidest. It really is the dumbest costume of all time. Jim Zub and Sean...
so Charlie automatically loved this one.
Izakis, I'm not familiar with the artist at all. Now, we're going to talk Legacy Test here, right? Let's talk Legacy Test here. This book is, a good chunk of it involves Wonder Man and Beast teaming up, which, hey, I love me some Wonder Man and Beast teaming up. That's a classic Avengers team up right there. So it passes the Legacy Test, right?
That part does.
They mentioned the Fantastic Four in this comic. Oh. The words Fantastic Four have not appeared too many times. They actually say, like, Reed and... I believe they actually say Reed and Sue Richards in here. Yeah. Like, they don't mention those characters ever. So, okay, you got me. Again, Uncanny Avengers I haven't followed anytime recent. It's about Johnny Storm basically getting the entire Fantastic Four.
The fortune.
Yeah,
he gets the estate.
Yeah, Reed's estate. Again, I'm not going to say not the greatest comic of all time. I thought the last page was pretty funny. Dr. Voodoo summons the armies of Satora in order to, the minions of Sidorak, these little juggernaut-looking dudes that are like, we can rebuild Avengers Mansion. I like the fact of rebuilding Avengers Mansion, but of course, they didn't think that, hey, if you summon Sidorak, that you're going to get Juggernaut. So Juggernaut comes crashing in the very last page, and we're going to get Juggernaut versus the Uncanny Avengers. Even though Juggernaut's been like a good guy for like 10 years, who fucking cares? Actually, I like this issue. It's pretty fun. Wonder Man and Beast teaming up is classic, and this passes the Legacy Test for me. It's still new, but it's got some old school feels. It's a fun title. I really liked it. I thought it was fun.
I also like the fact that they acknowledge the importance of the mansion.
Yeah. Just
it even sort of has the characters acknowledging the importance of the legacy and what things sort of stand.
Not as heavy-handed as Mojo, but
overall, yes, I like the issue. But I've been liking a lot of stuff with this book prior to Legacy too.
Yeah, I fell back on it.
I like the fact that they also kind of acknowledge the fact that apparently when Parker Industries fell, so did Deadpool's fortune or whatever.
Oh, yes. If there is one thing about the Deadpool comic, it's the fact that Deadpool's not a hero anymore. He's a straight up villain again. He's not in the Avengers. He's out of this book. His fortune, that is a perfect. Thank you. I completely forgot about that. That is a perfect Legacy thing. It's a stupid thing. Change it back to the way it was. This is the way it should be. It's such a better story arc this way. The characters make more sense. Get Deadpool the hell out of this title. And get in this. No. I hate that crap. So thank you, Charlie, for reminding me of that.
So, I mean, it's definitely. How do I put this? The Juggernaut reveal at the end was something I do want to read the next issue on. But it didn't get me super hyped. It wasn't a big reveal, but it was
fun.
It's going to be a fun next part of the story. It is definitely on that sort of just good, I almost want to say cheesy, but it's not really cheesy, but just sort of good generalized feel. It's not going to set any records or...
No.
I don't feel like there's a big shock coming.
And I don't need them to, right?
Forward, fun story.
Well, and we talked about this when Rebirth came out. Not all these books were changing the world, right? But I'm like, they just felt right.
Exactly.
And again, there's a few things that changed in this comic, but it felt right. It probably is right into Avengers.
The thing is I think that for me, I mean, I haven't been reading Uncanny Avengers. I haven't cared about the Uncanny Avengers, which is basically just the end of half Avengers, half X-Men team.
Well, it's basically just the whole Unity squad stuff.
But the fact of the matter is harkening back to the Wonder Man and Beast team up stuff. Also, that you're getting, you got a sense that this was more of like a West Coast Avengers team in this than I have felt before.
One thing I really, really liked about this issue is it was a very good issue to bring somebody up to speed on certain things and then sort of jump into an actual story.
Yeah.
Because I like sort of that narrative of Beast and Wonder Man just talking about all the stuff they've been through in the context of these two people kind of having a reunion. And
you don't have to go back and read all that stuff.
Yeah.
You just read
you just get a full sort of sense of what's been going on with Beast and what's been going on with Wonder Man and their interaction between different characters and that kind of stuff. Like I thought that played very well as a get up to speed story.
Yeah. We're gonna wrap up. We got one book left. X-Men Blue, number 13, second part of the Mojo crossover. This is by Cullen Bunn and Jorge Molina. So, we already talked about it before. It's Spirit Assist. I've seen Jorge Molina's artwork before, but man, with maybe an exception or two, a panel that wasn't the best. He's bringing his A game on this issue. I really liked his art. They bring Longshot back, a classic Mojo character, classic X-Men that hasn't been around much. Some of these pages are fantastic.
I like the meta-ness of all my followers, and I'm streaming this for free.
Now, that could have been done. That could have been so bad, right? But it works within the context of Mojo. It works within the context of Longshot. It's not Gwenpool with a selfie stick, right? Yeah. It's just like it felt right for the character, and it wasn't overdone. It made sense, and I thought this part was better than the first part, but you have to set up in the first part. So some great versions of these characters. I like seeing Phoenix back as what do they call the Ravagers? No, what do they call them? Broadcast the issue. I don't have it in front of me. What do they call her? I can't remember what they call her now.
For what?
When she's got like the spike collar and all black. The hounds. Yeah. I really, again, cool, very classic X-Men setups.
I love the last page on this one.
What's the last page?
The classic Magneto.
Oh, that's Asteroid M. Yeah. That's the Jim Lee. Yeah, Magneto. Yeah, as they flip to the next channel, right? Yeah. Oh yeah. God,
that last page.
I just remembered how bad the Iceman story was with that lady that had all those sentinels that were like part of some movie. God, it is the stupidest shit. Anyway, let's talk about X-Men Blue. X-Men Blue was good. I really like this little crossover. I don't. Marvel's doing too many of them. Right out the gate, they're just doing too many of these stupid crossovers. But I like this. This one I was looking forward to. This one made sense. So I do really like this one.
I was looking for the second part. I was not disappointed at all. I enjoy the Mojoverse. I enjoy Longshot. Lots of classic scenes in here. Yeah. Got a classic Magneto at the end. Good artwork. I actually enjoyed the cover as well. And the Jim Lee one. Yeah. And not a jumping on point, but a good closure, a good follow-up to
Yep. All right, that's a lot of comics. So we're going to finish up here. I think based on our what we said here, I feel like this isn't a complete failure. Some of them obviously bad, some of them pretty good. I think when I piled up the stacks, I had about 2 or 3 that I thought were great, but 2 or 3 that I thought were just absolutely terrible, and the rest of the stack was in the middle. And to me, that's a higher success rate than Marvel's had recently. So
on years. Charlie disagrees?
Kind of. When I think about the ones that sort of X-Men Blue and Gold, I was kind of already on board with.
Yeah.
Defenders, I was already on board with. Jessica Jones, I was already on board with. Like, I feel like there's a couple of ones in here that, like, as I said, I'm curious to see where they go with Deadpool. I like the new direction they're taking the Uncanny Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I'm just gravitating towards the same books I was already gravitating towards.
Well, I definitely picked up a few more. So for me, maybe I was not reading as many. I was maybe down to 12 Marvel comics I was following regularly, and I mean, I used to read 12 a week, right? Like, great perk of the comic store occasionally is I get to read comics for free here. When I don't want to read your comic for free and it's most of the line, like that's saying something. So for me, I'm definitely net positive on this. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall for me, I didn't pick up any books that I wasn't reading.
Yeah.
Books, like Charlie said, that I've already been attached to, I'm attached to. I think the only one that stood out for me is anything really kind of new that I'll maybe check out is Spirits of Vengeance.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I'll keep reading Jessica Jones if there's an extra copy to read. I'll keep reading Defenders if there's an extra copy to read. But I mean, nothing in this screams you need to pick up the next issue. I've already been reading.
Other than what you were already reading.
Otherwise, yeah. And the thing is, even like with X-Men Blue and Gold crossover, I'm going to read X-Men Gold, and then X-Men Blue is crossover, but once it goes away, I'm just going to stick with X-Men Blue.
Yeah.
Or sorry, Gold, and just not read Blue, so...
Jim is a bit of an a little more old school fan. Any of this?
And I really wanted to go back to loving Marvel again. This did not succeed with that, but But I will be picking up a couple more issues now. Obviously, the Spirits of Vengeance is going to be a hard read for me, and enjoy that one all the way through.
Yeah.
I want to find out what's going on with Blackheart and Falcon. Deadpool can suck it. And I was already reading X-Men Blue and Gold.
Yeah.
So looking forward to the next issues that are coming out for Cable, and that's coming out next week. This week, sorry. And let's see where the rest of the ones take us.
Hello, everyone. This is Ryan Higgins from the Comic Conspiracy Podcast, and this is a very special episode segment. It's going to go up a few different places. We have with us on the line. Let me make sure I get this right. The author of Slugfest, and now the very long subtitle, Inside the Epic 50-Year Battle Between Marvel and DC, Reed Tucker. Reed, how are you?
I'm pretty well, Ryan. Thanks for getting the subtitle right. It's I think they had to put it in 12-point font on the cover because there's so many words. But yeah, you know how books are these days. Got to have your subtitle.
Well, yeah, it tells people what the book is all about because
exactly.
Slugfest, right? People are not going to know what it is, so you have to have that long subtitle.
Yeah, I realize now there's a baseball video game called Slugfest. Oh. So I guess it has a lot of meanings, but for me it's like a punch up.
Right.
But I guess for other people it's a baseball game. Anyway.
Yeah. So your book came out just it was just this past week, correct? It was on the 8th.
Yeah.
It released. So just came out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, you know what's funny? Amazon gives me October 3rd, so I don't know. Maybe Amazon got it early. But so before we get into the book here, as we like to do here on the podcast, I always like to ask people their secret origin, kind of their history of comic books, how they got into them, if they stayed fans through the years, and now kind of where they stand now. Obviously, you must be a Marvel and DC fan if you're going to write an entire book about them. So what's your history here?
Yeah, exactly. I'm a fan of both. Maybe not quite equally, but I certainly enjoy both. But I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I think like a lot of people, comic books were much more available back then. There were spinner racks at the 7-Eleven or at the mall bookstore, and so they were more around. So I can't exactly remember how I got into comic books, but it probably came through merchandise. I don't know about you, but I had all these toys growing up. We had Underoos and it was basically merchandise. That was probably the first place I discovered Batman or Superman.
When you were younger, probably before you were reading more regularly, because I think
exactly
cartoons was kind of my intro to it. I would see like the Fantastic Four, the old the Hanna-Barbera Fantastic Four cartoon. I saw that when I was pretty young.
Right.
Although I was a little bit older, obviously the '89 Batman movie was, really kind of kickstarted a bunch of my interest in comics. So.
Oh, really? That's interesting because they still have that problem nowadays where the people who see the movie then don't necessarily associate those characters with comics and then go in search of comics.
Well, I knew about them prior to that, but I was it wasn't like a thing that I collected. It was I knew them because of the trading cards, the cartoons, the movies, and I sort of kind of came into comics after all that. And I mean, it sounds like you did something very similar.
Yeah, exactly. So I think probably my parents bought me comics growing up. I can remember getting them free in a cereal box. I looked this up because I think it was Post Cereal in the late 70s would give away these little mini DC comics that had Wonder Woman or Batman or Superman in them. And so I've seen those on eBay. So I think I can definitely remember reading those. And I certainly like comics growing up. I think The Dark Knight Returns was one of my favorite series that kind of changed my mind about comics. And These days, though, I still read comics. I still like comics. I don't read too many series from Marvel and DC. I prefer more indie comics. I guess I like The Walking Dead and Sex Criminals and some manga stuff. Sure. So I don't know. I just find Marvel and DC a bit too confusing for me. But I don't know. I'm sure you hear that a lot. But But yeah, I still follow the industry. Obviously, I'm still really interested in the industry and superheroes, especially now with the films. But as far as reading monthly Marvel and DC comics, I don't do it, unfortunately.
That's all right. Do you follow along like the movies or shows or any of that stuff?
Some of them, but man, there's so many now. I know. I hear you guys talking about all the Marvel shows. I'm way behind on the Marvel shows. Although it sounds like I should have skipped Iron Fist. I got that from you guys that I should not. I probably should skip that one.
Yeah, I was. I think I only got 5 episodes in.
Okay.
The DC shows just started back up, and I'm already like 4 episodes behind. Like I'm like, oh no, it's my day off, and I'm recording a podcast instead of watching like 20 episodes of Arrow already. It's like, no, what's happening?
I know, it's insane. Could you ever imagine, in the 80s or in the 70s when comic books were so marginalized and say for like these dusty strip malls in the worst part of town that now you would have like 20 hours a week of like high budget comic book content? It's insane to me.
You don't even need that. I can't imagine this in 2005.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, this just wasn't a thing, right? I mean, this is...
It's true.
Arrow on the TV end kind of started it, and they're on their 6th season now. And obviously Spider-Man and X-Men kind of kickstarted those movies, but really, Iron Man in what was that, 07, 08?
08, yeah.
That wasn't even 10 years ago, and it feels like, what are we going to have, like 30 Marvel movies in a 10-year time period? It's insane.
It really is. And you're right, all the DC TV series, all the Netflix TV series, now with Gifted and all these other kind of Marvel spin-off-ish series, it's too much. I can't keep up with it. I'm still way behind even on the Netflix series.
Well, it's like the comic books, right? I mean, my day off is reading comic books, right? Because I don't have time to do it when I'm actually working at a comic book store. Like, the secret is, people think, oh, you work at a comic store, you sit around and read comics all day. It's like, I never get to read comics at work anymore. I used to, and there'll be days where I'll sit down and, power through a few things, or, on like a quiet Saturday afternoon when I'm, an hour from closing, I'll burn through 10 comics or something. But, my reading time is mostly done on my personal time now, so...
Man, that's crazy, because when I worked at a restaurant, for example, like the last thing I wanted to see when I was done for the day was food. You know what I mean? Does it kind of sour your relationship with comics slightly when you're in the business?
Well, I separate my collection and my personal comic stuff very heavily from the store. Anything that's at the store is not mine. It's the store's, right?
Gotcha.
The stuff I'm reading at work, I read because I have to. The stuff I read at home is stuff I read because I want to.
That's good.
I do try to draw this very, this clear delineation between the two. And when I'm at home and I'm reading a comic and I don't like it, I'm usually, there are some comics I read where I'm like, well, like most comic fans, I've collected this thing for 30 years. I got to keep buying it. But for the most part, if I really start to dislike a title, it just goes back into the pile, and I take it back to work, and I stop taking it home.
Yeah. Do you have a complete run of anything?
So my biggest complete run is I put together a run of Avengers, Avengers number 1 to when they relaunched it as New Avengers, so 503. But I have every Green Arrow comic ever published, every Nightwing comic ever published, every, if you're talking DC, basically like 96 and on, I have almost, not everything, but almost everything they published. And various runs. Prior to that, when eBay started up, I would just go on eBay and be like, sure, complete run of Firestorm for $5, why not, right?
Right.
eBay in like 2002 or I don't even remember when eBay started, 2004 or whatever. I would just buy bulk stuff for nothing and have boxes and boxes of this crap. And I'm like, oh, sure, I'll buy all of Booster Gold for $1.50. Why not? And now the book's worth like $50 for just the number 1 issue. But, whatever.
Wow. Well done.
Yeah, stuff like Sandman I have like 5 different
versions, the hardcovers, the omnibus, the single issues. So I'm stupid.
You're passionate.
Oh yeah, you got to be.
There you go.
So what? So Slugfest, the book. Let's. So if you're not as Marvel and DC focused as a reader these days, what made you decide to write this book?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can remember definitely when I was a child on the playground, kids having this argument about which was better, Marvel versus DC, and I remember it being much more of a rift when I was younger. But I guess what sort of really sparked the idea, I had the idea, but I was kicking it around. But what really sparked the idea was, I think it was 2 years ago when DC and Warner Brothers threatened to release Batman versus Superman on the same day as Marvel's Captain America Civil War.
Oh.
And it's sort of like the internet just kind of exploded. Wow, you got the dogs barking at the postman in the back there.
Yeah, they love barking at everything that moves. They're all right.
Is there an intruder in your house?
No, someone is within 5 miles of our house, so the dogs are alert. So
it's a good security system for it. So that was kind of the final nail, I guess, in the coffin for me. Was it when that happened and fans kind of immediately drew lines and took sides, and there was all this smack talk on the internet, and people were asking Warner Brothers and Marvel about, oh no, these two are going to collide on the same day. So that really showed me that there was still a whole lot of life in this rivalry, and maybe more life than I remember growing up now because of the internet and social media, and it's so easy for people now to interact.
Oh yeah.
I know, I'm sure, for better or for worse.
We don't have to go into it, but yeah, no. The Marvel DC rift has taken on a whole new life even in the last couple of years. For anyone that follows some of the real crappy online trolls, they've taken the Marvel and DC fight to a whole new level in their own personal kind of war against comics. So yeah, it's no fun.
It's interesting. Yeah, because this was news to me when I started researching the book. But I wanted to ask you, I heard from other retailers that there were people out there, they had customers who still to this day will insist on only buying one company or the other. They only buy Marvel comics or they only buy DC, and they won't touch the comics from the other company. Do you have any of those?
Well, it's tough. Yes, but I think for the most part, it doesn't come down to a hatred of the other company. It comes down to just not being a fan of the modern takes on those characters. I have and for people to listen to the podcast, there is no greater feud in comics than myself and Bryce. I'm pro DC, he's Team Marvel, and although we are very good friends and we play it up for the podcast, but that it is. There are definitely people that just kind of fall to one side or the other, and I have many customers that they, again, it's not that they dislike Marvel. It's mostly people that buy all of DC and buy no Marvel. I don't have too many that are the opposite. But it's just what Marvel has been in the last 20 years is not the Marvel that they want and not the Marvel that they like, and so. When Marvel Legacy came out, if you're familiar with that, that's Marvel's attempt to kind of relaunching some of their books. I gave Marvel Legacy to every single subscriber, regardless of who they were, and customers get only DC Comics. I gave it to them, and no one turned it down. It wasn't like they threw it in the trash or anything. But I said, hey, they're going to try to market some of these to you, or if you're interested in any of this, let me know. So I think again, it's not that they hate Marvel or DC, but it's not what they grew up reading. You talk about it in your book, especially the switch from at DC in the early '80s when things like X-Men and New Teen Titans were, I wouldn't say necessarily competing against each other, but they were both trying to challenge the market. Everyone I talked to, especially if they're a big DC fan, they said, in the 70s and 80s, all I was reading was Marvel and DC was garbage, and then it kind of switched. Mm-hmm. And that is, especially for some of my older customers, that is sort of the time when everything changed.
for the more recent fans, it is kind of Marvel's attempted to alter their audience in the last handful of years. They're going for a much different group of readers than they have in the past. And so that's led a number of people to be like, I kind of like the classic stuff a little bit more, and DC is a little more suited for them. But I don't know anyone that would never, under any circumstance, not read the other company. Right? I think that's the difference. So.
No, I can understand that. That makes sense. But it just seems like both companies publish such a breadth of material that there would be something that everyone could find. I mean, DC maybe more so than Marvel with their old Vertigo. I guess they still have Vertigo titles and things like that. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I find that fascinating that there's still those people out there. And certainly with the movies, there are those people out there, because I see that online all the time. Yeah. People talking trash about DC movies and Marvel movies.
Well, the secret is people go see all of them, right?
Yeah, no matter how much they complain, that's exactly right. They still do.
Despite Marvel doing better than DC at the box office, you don't have like $150 million opening weekend for something like BVS without every Marvel fan going as well, right? Whether they want to just trash on it, they're still buying those tickets. So
it's true. I think Justice League, though, is really going to be the bellwether for DC, because there are a lot of people like me who don't particularly like the DC movies, and it's like Charlie Brown trying to kick the football. I'm always like, all right, let me give this one. No, maybe this is going to be the good one. I'm going to give it one more chance. Okay, well, that one didn't work. Let one more chance. And then they keep yanking the football away. And I think if Justice League doesn't work, I think a lot of people are going to be done with it. Maybe they already are. I don't know. It seems like yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, in the more recent Marvel movies on my end, again, I'm a big fan of the DC movies. So, although, I understand their flaws. Again, a topic of conversation on the podcast regularly is, just the universal love for the Marvel movies. I've been very disappointed with the last couple. I felt Civil War, really Age of Ultron and on. There's been a couple that have worked better for me, but Marvel's gone way too reliant on comedy, and I hear Thor's like just a weird, quirky comedy through the whole thing, and that's not what I want. All right, so no. I already bought tickets for Thor. I bought like 30 tickets the other day. We had a huge group going, and I'm praying that I don't, 10 minutes into the movie, I'm just, like it was for Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Baby Groot starts dancing on the screen, and I'm like, this isn't for me anymore. This just isn't me. So.
Hey, I'm actually with you on that. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 for me was one of the few Marvel movies that kind of just fell flat. The humor did not work at all for me. But well, I hear you. It's all
was
different
incredible. It's just one of the best movies they made. So but again, here's the war, right? Everyone's got their different opinions. So when you started researching this, you go all the way back to the 30s. You go back to the Action Comics #1. How did you research for this book? Because there's a lot of quotes from like fanzines, and there's a lot of quotes from very old articles. What was kind of your research like for this book?
Yeah, it took a long time. But yes, you mentioned eBay earlier, and eBay is a great source for like old fanzines. So I bought up on some various internet sites, including eBay, like old Comics Feature and Comics Scene and all these, Comics Journal. I bought a digital subscription, and they have all the issues archived there. So it's pretty, it's funny because the comic industry has been pretty well chronicled, at least starting in the 70s, maybe a little bit less so. But you can still find stuff even before then. These radio appearances Stan Lee did in the 60s, or college talks, transcripts of college talks that he did, also in the 60s. So there's a lot of stuff out there. So it was just a matter of reading through all of that stuff, reading books, and of course talking to people, in the industry, which I tried to do as many as I possibly could. Obviously it's hundreds and hundreds of people, but I tried to talk to who I thought were maybe some of the key figures.
Yeah.
So it took maybe a little over a year to research and write the whole thing, which I didn't think was enough time, but that was the deadline. So I tried, but man, it's it's hard with two companies, and each has such a long history and has produced so much material, and so many people have worked there. And it's hard to sift through it all. But I tried to sift through it as looking for what might interest me, as more of a mainstream reader, as opposed to the hardcore person who's read everything. So that's kind of how I approached it. So I thought, if somebody told me something that kind of sparked interest in me, then I hope it would do the same for the reader.
Well, I think as for the hardcore comic fans, especially kind of from probably the 90s and on, I think, at least myself, I'm 38, so people roughly my age and a little bit younger, we saw a lot of this actually happen with Wizard Magazine and the early internet, and now Twitter and Reddit and Facebook. So, I feel like the 2000s and on, again, we've lived through this. It really is going back to the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. You hear these stories. I know you have a part in here where it's kind of the origin of the Fantastic Four, and Stan Lee's told this story a number of times, where the publishers of Marvel and DC were golfing. But there's various takes on that story as well, right? It isn't like this was this is exactly how it happened. It's
no.
Stan Lee loves to he loves to tell stories a lot. So we'll never quite know the truth, but
No, I know exactly. And it says in the book, it could have also been that he just heard it from somebody who worked at the distributor, or he also had a spy at the distributor. But yeah, I think the golf story, I think most people probably agree is bunk. But, Stan Lee will still tell it because he's a great storyteller, but he's somebody who tends to just kind of have these 5 or 6 stock answers that he gives, and he said the same thing so many times. I'm not sure if he knows it's true or not anymore.
Right. Well, like you said, that's the story that I've told. When I talk to customers about this, we've told it on the podcast because that's what you hear, right? How do you find can we even know the truth at this point? Or do we just have this one story?
It's really hard because the people who were there are dead. So,
not there anymore.
unless they told they wrote it down or they told their descendants. We may never know. But I don't think it's up for dispute that Marvel was setting out to copy the Justice League when they launched Fantastic Four. And that's what I think is really most interesting about that story, that, the success that Marvel has had with its superheroes all grows out of a desire to copy what its main competitor was doing. I find that kind of fascinating.
Well, I think the entire comic industry comes from copying what DC was doing at the time, right? I mean, Superman changed everything. The concept of the superhero, I mean, it existed in various forms prior, but there wasn't like a name for it. This idea of the costume character. The Shadow and Doc Savage they're not quite what Superman and Batman and Captain America became. They were on their way there, but it wasn't quite what we know as a superhero.
Right. No, I give DC credit for launching the whole industry, and Marvel just kind of putting a different spin on it. But it is fascinating, like you say, all the years these companies just kind of copy one another, and not just Marvel and DC, but certainly other companies that put out rip-off superheroes after Superman was so successful.
Sure. Well, we even have today. We were just talking about Marvel Legacy. The amount of times I have missaid Legacy or Rebirth when talking about one or the other. It happens every day because it's the same. I mean, they'll claim it's not the same thing, but it's the same thing, right? Both companies trying to get back to the roots a little bit. So.
Somebody said in the book that Marvel and DC will copy each other, and they'll blatantly copy each other, but they'll do it in slightly different ways so that they don't have to admit that they're copying each other. And ever since they said that, I look at that through that lens, and it is so absolutely true.
Oh yeah.
Marvel so wants to do Rebirth, but they can't do Rebirth. Yep. So you're right. It's Legacy now, or it was Marvel Now a couple years ago. Anyway.
Yeah. So your book goes up basically right to the start of Rebirth. I've reading through that last chapter. It looks like kind of Rebirth had just launched. So was that sort of your stopping point?
It had to stop
at some point.
Right, exactly. It had to stop. I probably last winter, earlier this year, I had to cut it off because I had to write it and
You just missed
had to be
Legacy
published.
then.
You know what? I know. But it's funny that these things are just going to go on forever and ever. And there have been a lot of things that have come out since then where I thought, oh man, I really wish I could have included that in the book, especially with the movies, Wonder Woman and all that. But anyway.
Second edition, right? Just get it in a year or two.
Let's hope. Yeah, we'll add 600 pages to the book all in the last year. But,
so in your research, I mean, do you feel like Marvel and DC kind of stoked this on the readers a little bit? Do you feel like they kind of push it, or do you feel like, despite there obviously being a rivalry between these two companies, do you feel like the fans kind of do this to themselves almost a little bit more, or actually do you feel like the actual rivalry within the companies, especially in those early days, kind of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and maybe into the 80s, do you feel like that's actually worse than maybe even we know? What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because the rivalry has kind of waxed and waned over the years. It just sort of depends on who's in charge. And I think you're right. A lot of it is probably driven by the fans at times, maybe more so. But I mean, I do think there is a rivalry at the institutional level at the companies, and there has been. And there have been people who have been pushing it more through the years than other years. And certainly in the beginning, I mean, Stan Lee was absolutely fueling the rival. That was one of his goals. I mean, I love reading some of those old Marvel comics where, he would take pot shots at DC in the letters pages, or some of the readers would write in letters taking pot shots at DC, and DC, their kind of buttoned up editors would respond in their very buttoned up way over in their letters page. And so there was that going back and forth. So I do think it was stoked on by the companies at times. And, the Bill Jemas era in the early 2000s, I think that was another time where he absolutely set out to try to rekindle that feud. And he thought it was great for business because he thought it forced fans to take sides, and they became more invested in the companies and the products, sort of like sports teams.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's both, but as we all know, it's a small, pretty insular industry, and a lot of people who work in it work at both of the companies, and so I don't think they necessarily have this huge hatred for one company or the other, but I do think maybe more towards the top or institutionally that rivalry is there and will probably always be there because they're two companies competing in the same space for the same dollars.
Well, the couple things I want to touch on there. You brought up the Bill Jemas, Joe Quesada era, and that I was going to bring this up. That was, for me, the point where I think the rivalry, I chose a side, and that side was DC in that fight.
Okay, they pushed you away, is what you're saying.
Well, right. So what happened was, again, this was when Marvel Knights started in '98, I believe, when Joe Quesada and Kevin Smith started Daredevil. I don't have the date in front of me. I believe it was '98. That was right when I had been working at the comic store for a little bit. I was much more invested in the industry. I was at that point I would have been like 19, so I was a little more conscious of what was going on. Actually reading things like Comics Journal or Wizard beyond just to see who was the top 10 superhero of the day. I was actually I'm interested on more business level, and obviously very early days of the internet and on news groups and things like that. The Jemas era represents some of the best comics I think Marvel has published to date since. I mean that 90, from the mid 90s to now, maybe even 1990 to now. Those are some of the best comics. And also some of the worst comics.
Yes.
And their attempt at just throwing anything to the wall to stick, I feel like that fundamentally changed Marvel. I mean, Quesada and Jemas have numerous comments like this where they said, we're just going to throw 50 things against the wall and see what sticks. And they never really let that go. And they published some amazing comics, and then they missed the mark quite a few times.
Yeah.
And instead of just being like a line where they tried to keep a consistent quality, they were just experimenting like crazy. And I appreciate that because things like X-Statix and Grant Morrison's run on X-Men came out of that. Kevin Smith's Daredevil run, Garth Ennis on Punisher. I hate the Punisher.
and I have a long box of Punisher comics because Garth Ennis wrote it, right, for like 10 years.
Right.
All these things came out of that era, so I appreciate the hell out of that. But, the fact that JLA Avengers even came out baffled me because I thought the company's, Joe Quesada's famous quote about, DC having the biggest dick in the industry, not knowing what to do with it. That was like the breaking point, I think. And that I'm surprised anything happened after that. But now it's not DC and Marvel. It's Disney and Warner Brothers. Obviously DC was owned by Warner Brothers at that point, but again, as these stories go, Warner Brothers didn't even know they owned DC for a while. The stories are always that executives had no idea that they owned that they published comics. That rivalry coming into the current day. How do you think it's changed? Do you feel like it's, especially in your research, the movies and the shows, is that almost more the driving factor than the actual comics?
Yeah, I think so. Probably with the companies and certainly with the fans. As well as anyone that the state of comic book publishing, and when you consider a giant corporation like Disney, it's like a rounding error, Marvel publishing for them. So I don't think it's their top priority. I think it has moved into this realm of television and movies, these properties that reach millions of people around the world and, raise hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billions of dollars. Whereas, I think the publishing they do it. It probably makes them money, but I don't know why they do it other than to keep trademarks alive or to create new stories, I suppose, that they might one day use for movies. But do you really believe there's somebody high up at Disney that cares about publishing monthly comics? I don't know.
Well, with Disney, it's funny. They, if you look, there's a number of companies that publish Disney comics, and they're not Marvel. IDW publishes right now all the Donald Duck, Uncle Scrooge comics. I believe at New York Comic Con they just announced that I believe it was IDW is also going to be publishing the upcoming Big Hero 6 comic.
Right, I read that.
Marvel character, right?
Yeah.
They're publishing, Marvel has all the Star Wars comics, but IDW is also publishing a Star Wars Adventures kids comic. You're like, why? That's really odd. But with Disney, as a company, I've seen what they do is they would rather have another company deal with it, and they get their 20% or 40% or whatever it is, regardless of success, right?
Oh, exactly. I've heard that so many times that Disney is at its heart a licensing company. And the reason they bought Pixar was because they saw all the licensing merchandising money that came from Cars.
Right.
So I don't think they necessarily cared about that Pixar was doing great work and turning out a great creative product. I thought they just see dollar signs in toys and bed sheets.
Well, I think there's two ways to look at it. If there wasn't a name brand recognition of quality behind Pixar, these movies wouldn't do as good as they do, right? Cars is kind of the anomaly of Pixar, I think. Not because the movie they performed very well, but they didn't do critically well. But most Pixar movies perform critically very well, and also financially very well. I think if Pixar suddenly every movie was bombing, I get the feeling that. Yeah, I guess if the merchandise money is there, they'll still do it. But, with Marvel, I think, again, like you said, it's so cheap. These comics are so cheap. There's so few people involved. They're profitable, right? Regardless of how poor or good Marvel sales are, they're always profitable. They're not losing any money on these things. So I think Disney just says, hey, every now and again, some comic's going to come out and it's going to be amazing and we can make a movie on it, and it's worth sinking a couple $1 million a year into it because one movie pays for it all, right? Things like just the name Civil War and Winter Soldier are worth so much more than what the comics have ever made, right? But Disney wants to be in the bookstore. They want to be on your Kindle. They want to be in the comic store. They want to be at Target. They want to be at Walmart. They want you at their park. They want you at the theater, right? So it's just one more place to see the Disney name. And I think for them, it's I don't think Disney's out there to make shit product. I think they're
No.
to make really good stuff. But
No, I agree. But yeah, no, I think I agree exactly with what you're saying. And it doesn't cost them that much to keep the publishing alive. And these days, it's true. You really never know where something big is going to come from. I mean, Marvel made a movie about a space raccoon and a talking tree, and it's like
right.
$750 million. So, I mean, you gotta just kind of, if you're a Disney, you just gotta kind of shrug and say, all right, you guys do your thing, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So I think it's smart. I hope they keep the publishing alive, and I hope they don't ever, just go back to reprints or all these things that they've been threatening for years.
Nah, I can't see it for either of the company. Again, as long as they remain profitable, I think it's just like you said. It's just one more line on their financial statement at the end of the year, right?
Yes.
I mean, the bean counters are like, yeah, it's making money, cool. We don't care as long as it's making something, right?
Right. Let's hope. Let's hope it stays that way.
So through the years, we've had these big team ups in the comic book industry. They went away in more recent years, but again, social media being what it is, and able to keep that rivalry alive. Even this morning, though, Jeff Johns, who's kind of the big writer at DC, and Dan Slott, who's one of the big writers at Marvel, they had a fun little back and forth on Twitter about Jeff Johns had met Dan Slott at New York Comic Con. They shook hands. Jeff Johns got a cold after that, and it was like, oh, it's all, trying to get DC to, try to make him sick so he can't write comics, but it didn't work because Jeff Johns couldn't go to sleep, and so he was up writing comics all night. It's just funny back and forth, right? But when I read the comments, it's great that we're talking about this because this literally just happened today. There was so many people that replied to those, and they're like, we love this. Why can't Marvel and DC, the companies, do this anymore? Like the creators, obviously, this rivalry doesn't exist within the creators. I mean, I'm sure there's a rivalry there between, on a creative level, where like they want to outdo each other. But it's such a small industry, and these guys are all friends. Do you think we'll never get those, like that classic, the Superman Spider-Man stuff again, or the Batman Hulk, or JLA Avengers, which is kind of the last big crossover. So this goes beyond the rivalry stuff, but this goes to just these companies working together or connecting. I mean, I don't know. Do you feel like Disney and Warner Brothers are just they're not going to do that?
Yeah, I mean, the people I talked to told me I won't say never, but it'll probably never happen again. Just that now that these publishers are owned by these giant corporations that are especially about taking IP and turning it into these global brands for merchandising and films, that there's no way that they're going to cooperate with the other company, help the other company potentially raise the profile of one of their characters, or help the other company potentially raise its sales, just in order to satisfy, what is it, the 250,000 comic book fans that are left out there, print comic book fans. That's what I was told was it is never going to happen again. So I wish it would, because I thought some of those series were so fun. Just seeing the two companies cooperate, just how they went about it, I always thought was really fascinating, especially the series back in the 70s and early 80s. I just thought were amazing. But yeah, I really don't think it's going to happen. But imagine, if they did it in the movies, imagine if they put out like the Avengers versus the Justice League in the movie. I mean, do you know how much money that would make?
Well, and that's what I kind of wonder, because Who Framed Roger Rabbit, one of my favorite movies of all time, right? The fact that movie got made is nuts, right?
Yes.
Just I've read stories where they had to be down to like the millisecond where the characters had to be on screen at equal amounts, right?
Exactly right.
But again, like you said, if we're going to go all back to money here, someone has approached them and said, guys, think about Avengers versus Justice League, a movie that I love Star Wars, but I don't think Star Wars would stand a chance against that. I mean, I think that would be let's take Avatar down. I'm going to say this would be the biggest movie ever made, right?
Yeah.
I think just the unprecedented nature of something like that would draw regardless of kind of which side you're on. I think maybe they'll have to divide the theater into Marvel and DC sides, right? So we can't sit next to each other. There's a big line down the middle we can't cross. But I think it would be so incredible. But yeah, like you said, I'm worried that that these companies just won't play ball together, and it's just never going to happen.
No, I think never. Because they basically do all the work they would do for a normal film, maybe even more of the work to bring the two companies together, and then they only get half the profits. I think for them, it's just not a smart business decision. And then, down the road and like DVD sales, or, when they sell it to cable television, or, I think about, I really love the series, The Wonder Years, and how many years or decades that was not available on DVD because the music rights were so convoluted that they could not figure that out. So I couldn't imagine just how many lawyers or accountants would have to be involved with, combining the Marvel and DC film universes. I won't say never, but pretty much never. It's never going to happen.
Yeah. Let's turn back to your book here for a few minutes. I'll put you on the spot here, but you obviously researched this a ton, and there's so many stories about these companies kind of going against each other through the years. Do you have like a favorite story, or maybe one that you had never heard before, and then researching this you found like just a fascinating kind of rivalry that these guys had? Maybe not in the 2000s occurring, because I feel like that's we kind of know that. Go back to those old stories. Was there something you found that you were shocked by or really surprised you?
Yeah, there's so many. There's one in particular I really like that involved a spy at DC. That this was, I think, in 1971. Anyway, it was in the early 70s, and DC was being run by Carmine Infantino at the time. They suspected that somebody in the production department was a spy, and that he worked late at night because he was in production, and that's when they worked. And after everyone else was gone home, he was going through people's desks, including Carmine Infantino's desk, looking for publishing plans, other intelligence that the company was up to. Then this person would leak that information to the fanzines or ultimately to Marvel. So DC suspected this, and they set out like this like World War II counter-espionage kind of mission where they printed up this fake memo on DC letterhead. They even had a code name for it. They called it Blockbuster, Operation Blockbuster. And they printed up this fake memo. They left it on Carmine Infantino's desk one night. He went home. They left it for the spy to find. Sure enough, the spy came along, took it, and the memo basically said that DC was planning to publish these 500-page comics. And they were going to call them the Blockbuster line, which, obviously is ridiculous at the time. No one was going to publish 500-page comics. And sure enough, a couple weeks later, Stan Lee over at Marvel is talking about, hey, maybe True Believers, Marvel's going to do these 500-page comics. And word got out to the fanzines. So I have some fanzines at the time that are talking about, hey, there's this stuff in the wind that these companies are going to start publishing these 500-page comics. And, of course, it never happened. This was only used to trap the spy. And DC eventually caught him because this guy at work was talking about, hey, what's up with these 500-page comics?
That's amazing.
But I guess what was disappointing to me is that, he wasn't like all traitors executed. They actually they let him keep his job. They just didn't let him work nights anymore.
Wow.
I guess it was a small industry, and they had to be a little bit kinder. But just the idea of spies to me, I found really fascinating. There was another one also around the same time. I was talking to Larry Lieber, who I think everyone knows is Stan Lee's brother. Mm-hmm. And Larry Lieber is himself a pretty accomplished comic book writer. He wrote Iron Man's first appearance, and he did a bunch of these stories over the years. So, it's not like he's a slouch or a beginner. And so in the early 70s, he was trying to get work at DC. He sent his resume over to Carmine Infantino in DC, and he never heard anything back. And he was like, what the hell? And then a few months later, he was out at a bar in New York City. He saw Carmine Infantino in there, and he went up to Carmine and said, hey, Carmine, what gives? I sent you my resume. I think it's pretty good. How come you guys didn't call me? And Carmine said, wait, that was on the level? Like, you actually wanted a job here? We thought Stan Lee was just sending his brother over here to spy on us, so he never called you back.
That's great.
which I find insane because just this idea that these companies would send spies back and forth to one another, I find pretty cool. So yeah, that was one of the stories that is one of my favorites.
So you have so many of these creators that have had histories at both companies, right? Do you feel like did any of the creators you talked to or any of the people you talked to, do you feel that they want these creators to kind of like toe the company line while they're there? Did you talk to anyone that maybe had maybe a good story about kind of switching back and forth between these companies? Did any of that come up?
It did, but much more so in the earlier days of the companies.
Okay.
In the 60s, certainly when Marvel and its superhero line started up, there seemed to be much more of a strict policy of division between the two companies. If you worked for one, you would not be allowed to work with the other. And once Neil Adams, I guess, defected from DC and went over to Marvel to do the X-Men, that's when that kind of broke down. But, there are those famous stories of the people from DC, the artists and writers using the fake names when they wrote for Marvel because they were afraid that DC was going to find out. So I think that's mostly gone away now. And I think the companies are, they're 21st century companies. They understand that freelancers need to make money wherever they can. And I don't think I didn't hear any stories about being forbidden from working at one company or the other nowadays.
Okay. Obviously, Jack Kirby kind of being the big one, right? I mean,
yes,
when Kirby left Marvel, right? Again, in your research or talking to people, did you get a sense of how Marvel? I mean, we kind of know how Marvel reacted, but anything there? Because I feel like that must have been just. Imagine if that happened today, right? Imagine if Brian Michael Bendis or Jeff Johns, I'm not going to say they're, maybe let's take Jim Lee, right? Imagine if Jim Lee suddenly decided, hey, I'm going to go work for Marvel tomorrow. Like, that'd be insane, right? At the time, Kirby was the biggest name ever, right?
Yeah.
Do you know did you were able to find out anything, like, especially in Marvel's reaction to that maybe wasn't more commonly known or hadn't really been told before?
Yeah, I don't know necessarily what's commonly known, but I think also it was a bigger deal back then because the companies were so much smaller and the industry was so much smaller. And like you said, I mean, Jack Kirby basically represented Marvel at the time. And for him to defect, I think, was crushing. What the people who were working at Marvel at the time told me was that Marvel tried to put on sort of a brave face. And if you read, I think Stan Lee wrote a soapbox at the time announcing Kirby's departure, and it's a mix of kind of disbelief and optimism. So it's like, well, he's left. We don't really understand why. He wants to do his thing. We wish him well. Over at Marvel, things continue on as they have been.
All right.
Which, we know now is probably not the case, and that, he was a huge creative force there driving a lot of what they did. But no, and then he went over to DC and he started doing those weird books that I think a lot of people didn't quite understand. And he had that character that was a parody of Stan Lee, Funky Flashman, that
yeah.
I also find just mind-boggling. And apparently that really hurt Stan Lee's feelings, and people at Marvel thought that was really a low blow and lost a little bit of respect for Kirby. But yeah, it was a huge bombshell back then. And yeah, I don't know if we'll ever have another one of those, just because the industry now is so just, it's much wider than it was back then.
Well, and I think today too, like I said, Brian Michael Bendis or Jeff Johns or Jim Lee, these guys aren't just freelancers. They work for the company. They are employees of the company. They're not, Jim Lee's a co-publisher. Jeff Johns obviously works in the movie department. Comics is, I'm not gonna say secondary to these guys, but it is. They work for the company. They're not freelancers. They don't work for the industry, right? So,
right.
I think a guy like Kirby today would just be signed to a contract for Marvel for life. You mentioned too, Chris Claremont, right?
Right.
He as I don't know that details are really known of what his contract is, but everything I've heard is he basically has like a contract for life with Marvel, and things I've heard and people that I've talked to have assumed that it's like we just don't want him to leave us and sue us, So
I don't know about suing. Yeah, I talked to him. I had lunch with him one day, and what he said was, this was, I can't remember exactly the year. This was probably in the early 2000s, that he, when he got pushed off the X-Men books, and I think he felt a little frustrated by that and a little offended because he was the person that was probably most responsible for building up that line of books and leading to a lot of Marvel success in the 80s and 90s. And I think he felt disrespected a little bit. And so, he started looking for work at DC, and what he told me was when Marvel found out that he was over there looking for work, they thought, what's going on? Why is basically the guy behind our X-Men franchise is going to go to DC? We don't want that, and so they immediately brought him back and signed a contract with him. I don't know if that's still the same contract he has to this day, but yeah, I heard a lot of the things that you're talking about, that he just is on, it's like a allowance, they just pay him. And I don't think I haven't seen any new work from him necessarily, but I mean, hell, he deserves it. They should pay him. They should pay him more. I mean, he's responsible for so much of their success. And look at the movies now. I think that the X-Men movie was one that really started off this modern day explosion. So God bless him. They should pay him.
Yeah, Marvel's obviously always known as, their royalties aren't quite the best when it comes to the movies. I've heard stories from creators at DC that said, they get paid more for one of their random characters that shows up on screen for 5 seconds than I think was it Len Wein? I can't remember. Someone got paid a ton of money for I think it was Len Wein got paid a ton of money for just a minor character that appeared more so than everything he did for Marvel.
It's in the book. $400,000, I think he got.
Yeah.
I think it was for in the Batman movie. It was for
blanking on the character's name.
It was the Morgan Freeman character, wasn't it?
Yep.
Exactly.
That's right. Yep.
So yeah, apparently, but it's weird because I think I also tried to figure this out, and it's weird because each person has a different deal. Each character has a different deal depending on when they were created and what they're being used for. And so it was really hard to pin down, like, you get X amount of dollars for this. But, I heard all sorts of different stories. But I agree with you. I think generally I heard that DC is a bit more generous. Maybe a lot of that boils down to Paul Levitz. He seemed to be somebody who tried to pay the creators a little bit more over the years and would give them like sort of an honorarium if their character appeared, even if there was nothing, he wasn't contractually obligated to do it.
Well, that was the Paul Levitz is widely regarded as the guy that kind of created the royalties for the comic industry, like in the modern day, right? And that these didn't really exist prior, and I don't quite know that anyone knows the specific deal Neil Gaiman has. But obviously you can't use Sandman without Neil Gaiman's kind of say so, right? So obviously, I don't know what the legal contract is, but clearly it's more than just like more than just a handshake, obviously, because Levitz isn't there anymore. So the DC does seem to give these creators a little bit, but the fear was after Levitz left is, will this continue? And with all the TV shows and movies now, I don't hear too much about people complaining, but again, you never, it's.
I hear a little. It's in the book. Buy the book, everyone. Yeah. There's a little, just that some of the fees have been going down over the years. Yeah.
I did see that. Where they pay less per character appearance, right?
But it's interesting to me that DC treats Neil Gaiman so well, but they treat Alan Moore so poorly. And the thing about this doomsday clock is, if you believe that, which I do, that Alan Moore, said that he would get the rights to the Watchmen back as soon as the book went out of print, and that's what he believed was going to happen. And here we are, some 25 years later, or whatever it is, 30 years later, and still, and now they're just saying, nah, screw it. He's never getting the rights back, and we're just going to exploit them for this new story.
Well, I think the Alan Moore situation is so tough because I feel like most people, DC would have. Them in DC would have gone, okay, look, this isn't going to happen. You're not going to get the rights back. This clearly, the trade paperback is now a thing. We want to do more stuff with this. Here is a sum. And, I feel like these days it probably would have been worked out. I figure most creators would have. I'm sure Neil Gaiman was paid substantially to allow DC to, obviously own the rights for Sandman, but he kind of gets his little nod, and he has to kind of check off on this stuff. Where I feel like Alan Moore probably, I'm sure DC went to him in some degree, and Alan Moore was like, nope. Alan Moore's
right.
a bit of a prickly guy.
He is.
I'm sure, and again, I don't want to speak for Alan Moore here, but I'm sure in his mind he doesn't need the money, right? I mean, he's probably well off. So
yeah.
I think his anger and frustration at the company, he just said, forget it. I'm not going to deal with this. And when you're DC, I mean, if you own Watchmen, go for it, right? I mean, they're going to do whatever they want. It makes the whole Marvel Man thing over at Marvel. I'm like baffled that they still can't get that figured out after buying the rights to Miracle Man and Marvel Man and all that stuff. Like, I feel like there's something holding that back that we just don't know about yet. But with Watchmen, again, I'm not going to blame DC for doing something with it that at this point is it's so over and done with. I love Alan Moore. He's written some of the best comics I've ever read. But at this point, I think it's kind of done. But
yeah,
everyone's gonna have their different opinion on that too. So the rivalry continues.
Yes, there you go. Exactly.
Anything else anything you wanna tell us about the book or any other stories or?
Oh man,
any last things?
No, we've covered so much.
Now people have to go read the book and buy it.
Yes, please plug away.
Slugfest, inside the epic 50-year battle between Marvel and DC by Reed Tucker. It's available on Amazon. It's available at bookstores. I actually don't know it. Did you? I don't remember seeing this. I'm sitting at my computer. I'm sure I could check on Diamond's website. Is this? Do you know if Diamond carries this? Because this feels like a perfect book for a comic book store.
I would think so. That's a really good question. I don't know, and I meant to ask the publisher about that because I know there are different channels to distribute the books in different stores. But no, I really don't know. I have. Is it on there?
Slugfest, inside the 50-year epic battle between Marvel and DC, is in stock at Diamond Comics right now, and I should have done my research before, and that's me hitting the commit button on a couple copies for our shop. So
thanks.
There you go. A couple
we'll
copies
get
coming.
We'll get you the lenticular cover.
I only want the special variant cover.
It's only $75 more, and you have to buy 300.
People will buy it. Trust me.
Oh, that's nice. No, I appreciate that. No, I think it's if you put it up in a comic book store, I think people might pick up a copy or two here or there. But I'm trying to get the word out to comic book stores, but it's difficult.
Well, Diamond, whether you love Diamond or hate Diamond, they're obviously the big guy in town, and they have been trying and they've been pushing the book end of the market more heavily in recent years. A lot of the kids' books and the more books about comics and a lot of these not just like how to draw books, but they have really tried to expand that stuff out. But they're mostly a comic distributor, so a book like this, its market's going to be on Amazon. Its market's going to be bigger in the bookstores. But who doesn't want to read if you're a comic fan, more than likely the rivalry between Marvel and DC has been a part of your life in some fashion or other. So
yeah, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, Reed, it was great having you on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, and we're going to send this out to all our Patreon backers. They're getting this first. It's going to be up on the regular feed this week, so I'm sure our 2-hour-long episode will be an hour longer because of this. So I hope everyone listening somehow made it through this gigantic podcast as it's attached to. And if you buy the book, let us know. We'd love to let Reed know that you heard it through here. You got some social media you want to plug? You got anything else you want to plug? Other books, other work?
There is a Facebook page for Slugfest. There's also a website. It's not much beyond. You can order it. It's got a little excerpt. I think it's slugfestbook.com. And then I'm on Twitter. It's Reed_Tucker. But I don't tweet all that much about the book or comic books because I think people are tired of me talking about it.
Well, it's out now. Now you have to talk about it.
Well, I know, exactly. And at this point, I'm like, I'm over this. But, I tweet about all sorts of different things, I guess.
Excellent. Well, go follow Reed.
And it was great having you on, and I can't wait to get the book and give it a, we got our little PDF copy here. I read through a bunch of it, and I want to sit down on my day off and read about comic books, right? Because that's what I love doing. So
there you go. Well, thank you so much for having me on.